Doesn't look too bad. That light's kind of a pain. Bring that forward. It's not too bad. Hey, David. How's life treating you? Oh, we've been busy, which is okay with the usual everything else plus the mining stuff. Oh, we did not go out in the field this weekend. Last weekend, we spent time getting caught up on personal stuff, like not dishes so much, shopping and laundry, those sort of things. And we did a lot of work out at the mill. Actually, things are going pretty good, David. Very, very nicely indeed, as far as I can tell. When I was rebuilding the mill, I made an idiot mistake. I assumed I remembered something correctly when I didn't. And the tip, well, the rotor wear plates were a different width than the original ones, which created a couple of complications. But it also opened up an opportunity. I was thinking that the next iteration of design on the bob mill might be advantageous to have thicker chamber liner plates and higher wear bars. Hey, honey bunny. And, judging by the wear in the current mill and stuff. And so because I made smaller width wear plates for the rotor, I now had extra clearance. So some of the plates that needed to be replaced went from 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch, and the wear bars went from 1/2 inch to 3/4, and stuff like that. And I'm currently testing exactly what's going on. Hey, Mr. Lodak, the end of the rotors now sticks out 1/4 of an inch past the end of the wear plates. That will quickly correct itself. Oh, and another thing, let me write this down. Magnets, force loose. Okay. And so that seems to be doing a good job. The rotors wear plates now are made out of plasma cut AR 500, 3/8 of an inch thick. So another thing I decided to do was on opposite sides, 2 of those tips are unhard faced and the other 2 are hard faced. Keeps everything balanced. And I'm going to compare the wear rates of the 2 things. The draft appears to be quite similar. The grind size, last I checked, again, things are kind of changing themselves just a little bit right now, but the grind size seems to be just slightly larger, not much. It's still smaller than what we were getting with the screened Stutenroth mill. And it's also clear we're getting a lot more dead bedding in the bottom of the mill. Not a huge amount, but significantly more. And so that I did one test where I just, once I put in the new wear plates and everything, I ran it for 100 pounds of ore, and then cleaned everything out because I figured I'm going to have all kinds of slag and metal beads and everything else that are going to show up here. And it appears that I will get more gold trapping in the mill itself. Not surprising, not unexpected. By putting in the heavier wear bars, it's going to create more dead space, vortices behind the riffles, so to speak. So that's not unanticipated. It's also not a problem since it's pretty easy to clean out the mill. It's not like a ball mill that it's a big deal. It's about a 5-minute job. Just loosen one bolt, take out 3 others, rotate the plate, and put a bolt in just to keep it out of the way, hose things out into a tub, close it back up again. 5 minutes, done. So that's not a problem. It might even be advantageous under some circumstances. If you had relatively large gold, it wouldn't be bad for it to be trapped in the mill, and then you just wash it out at the end of your run. So I'm doing some stuff. I'll do a video on this in a little bit. I was a bit embarrassed about making the script, so I wanted to see how it was working before I did much else. Oh, that was annoying. Eva heard some choice words when I figured out what had happened. But anyhow, so what is that, making a virtue out of necessity? I hope that the jaw plate on the, hey, Chris, how's it going? Nice to see you. There was some chemical question I was thinking of asking you. What was it? It'll probably occur to me. How are you doing? Slow improvement? At least I hope improvement. I just got just talked to the cardiologist today for the results of my echo and stress echo and this and that. So far, all the specialist doctors, the pulmonologist, the neurologist, the cardiologist. Good, Chris, good. I say they all say I'm doing just fine. So I guess I'm just annoyed that I'm not as tough as I used to be. What's new, huh? Not the right way? No, I think it's supposed to go this way. Anyhow, so I say it's doing pretty well. Another thing I was also experimenting with, even had a magnetic pickup magnet with a handle on it that, to pick up nails and this sort of thing. Hey, Forrest, how's it going? Okay. Hope things go well there. But anyhow, so I also tried putting that at the top of the sluice to pick up magnetics. Yeah, Chris, it's hard to tell. But anyhow, so I put it across the sluice to pick up magnetics. Seems to be doing a good job. Seems to be keeping most of the magnetics out of the concentrates. But now I want to go to a more powerful magnet that fits a little better, and maybe 2 of them, so that, one loads up, you can take it out, clean it, do like that. See what happens when I'm really doing a good job of getting the magnetics out of the sluice. The outfalls of the sluice, I'm also putting it through a pool skimmer net to try and keep the organics out of the tank. They float around. They tend to get sucked into the. Oh, it would work great, Chris. Yeah, something like that would work great. I'm just trying to keep it real simple at the moment. Yeah, I'm sure it would do a great job. Yeah, floaty bits, exactly, honey bunny. Uh, One of the agitation pumps is pretty well worn out now. That is a significant wear item in the tank because those plastic pumps aren't really designed for slurry pumps. But at like $80 each, they're so cheap compared to the alternative. Hey, Red Wing, that it's pretty much just run them till they die. Let's see. I have developed ways to clean out the floaty bits using one of my stirrers. The housing, Chris. It's just worn out. That's all. Motor's working fine. It's spinning just fine. Bearings are good. It's just that the housing is so worn out that it's not developing much throughput anymore. So it's not getting much thrust. So we'll just have to see what we can do. Howdy, Lewis. How's it going? The new person, little one, Lewis Brewer from Leeds, South Dakota.
Hi, Lewis.
We were just there a little while ago. So, anyhow, those are some of the modifications, and they seem to be doing okay. The floaty screen needs more work, because I got to really, empty it about every 100 pounds. Now, Eva has been doing a great job of feeding the bob mill while I'm running the RC46 jaw crusher to make the feed material for her. This morning, for example, woke her up at 8 o'clock in the morning. We were back here, at 11:30?
Yeah.
And she had run 300 pounds through the bob mill. Well, we got 200 pounds stockpiled now. We started out with about 100. So I gained 100 pounds on her over that time. And that's what you'd expect, the RC46. Do I happen to know the slurry density? We're actually trying to run about a 1-to-1 slurry density, say 50% solids. And the reason for that is simply efficiency of getting as much as we can in the smallest container. I'm not sure, Honey Bunny. I think it wound up about 1.3, 1.35 grams per cc overall, but I'm not sure. Don't have the number at my fingertips. Don't have the numbers in my head where I can do a quick calculation. But that's one reason why we're using only 1,500 pound batches in that tank, because the support structure is designed to support, like 500 gallons of water. Yeah. So we are also doing some experiments. This particular stuff from the Discovery cabin the it has a lot of clays or something in it that really do not want to settle out, even with a centrifuge. So even centrifuging for like 20 minutes is real difficult to do our spot test and such. So we use some pool flocculant, and it doesn't seem to be affecting the spot test. So what we are doing right now, this morning, actually this afternoon, I took a pair of samples of the last tank that we just dumped. The sample from that, we sent them 2 samples. One was just the plain stuff. The other was the same material, but with flocculant in it. They're going to assay both. We'll see if the flocculant has a, any kind of deleterious effect on the gold concentration and such. To the ability of our spot test to check, the answer is no. But yeah, I'm not real confident in the spot test being the be all end all. Commercial Home Depot pool flock. It doesn't say on the side what's in it.
Yeah, it says nothing about the
It's blue.
Nothing. It's blue, extremely viscous,
Yeah.
doesn't have a serious odor, does foam moderately when you shake it up.
Yeah. It's a blue liquid. It's kind of viscous, like about like dish detergent. And it does foam when you shake it up. But anyhow, that's whatever it is. We get an actual name if you needed it. Could be. Let's say we're if it doesn't adversely affect the leaching, it might be useful to put into the leach circuit, but at the moment we're just using it for testing anyhow. So let's say we'll see. The bed of sand on the leach pad does a good job of cleaning the crud out of the solution. By the time it gets to the pregnant pond, it's pretty clear and clean. And so it seems to do a good job there. And we don't need the flock for that. As some of you might have noticed, we started stripping resin again this week. We've been loading resin, but the solutions have been very low grade. The first batch of solution we did, the 1/2 inch- screenings from the Discovery cabin, was pretty low grade. And the solution was pretty low grade. The next batch we did with the 1/2 inch plus, that's a different story. That stuff definitely had a lot more gold in it. We also have a situation where the silver in the solution from the first batch was 3 times the gold. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Another thing that we're testing is the electrolytic debris. We are now digesting before smelting in order to get a good quality bead, 98, 99% plus range. I don't think it's on the hardness of the quartz matrix. Our last trip up there, we were able to access the actual structure that the sample from the stockpile was from, and we saw the exact same phenomenon. The big chunks of quartz had a much higher, at least gravity separatable gold than the smaller chunks with clays and all that other stuff in it. Okay. And we broke up the clays pretty well and everything too. So I suspect it may be just the opposite, honey bunny, that we may have a depletion zone where the iron or metallic mineralization was washed either through geothermal solutions or meteoric water from rain, and it took the sulfides oxidized and then things became mobilized and left. I don't know. If Rock Butcher shows up later, I'd like to ask him what his opinion is, because the stuff from the mystery dump, which is near there, seemed to show the same effect. The smaller, well, not in that case, it was the stuff that was the more weathered and lower density and everything. It had less gravity separatable gold by a substantial margin than just the quartz. And we were also, our best quartz was found in the solid type quartz that had quartz crystals on it.
Clear crystal quartz.
Nice crystal clusters. Okay. Oh crap. Sometimes this thing does not give me extra tabs. So let's see. Jean-Francois address. Okay, I'll email that to you probably later tonight, Jean-Francois. He wants our mailing address so he can send the centrifuge. Let me know how much it costs. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, Chris. It's not the sugar quartz that seems to be as rich as the almost bull quartz.
It's the clear crystal cluster.
It's the clear quartz. It's really strange. Oh dear, Jean-Francois. Well, chicken soup, plenty of rest, hydration, all that stuff there. You take care of yourself. But anyhow, that was the strange thing, was that it was a cleaner, nicer looking quartz. It had a couple big chunks about like this. Put them in the jaw crusher, it's breaking, and you look at them. It's nice, just white surface. And that particular quartz from the Discovery Cabin area and the Mystery Dump area seems to be more not polycrystalline, macrocrystalline quartz, with big crystals that breaks up a lot easier in the crusher than, say, the quartz over at Montana B, which is like microcrystalline quartz. And it's some tough stuff. Hey, Alex, how's it going? Tuckered out? So it's a lot easier to crush. It chews up a lot nicer. And so, yeah, that would be nice, Chris. We'd like to see big chunk. We did find a little piece of wire gold. Yeah, where is it? This long and much smaller side in the sluice this morning after that first batch. And well, I hate it when that happens, Alex. Trying to find it and you can't find it. Yep.
Alex having fun?
He said he was looking for a mine yesterday. Hello, Mr. Virtue. No, we're just cleaning it out. And then we haven't been checking the quartz. Right now, we're kind of cleaning up all of our bulk samples and everything else too. And just emptying buckets and things like that. We were getting a lot of full buckets with various crushed rock from various things that we, had done some sampling before. And now it's all just going into the bob mill and grinding up, freeing up a whole lot of buckets. Let's see, there was something else I was just thinking of. Mm-hmm. Oh, dearie. Something about the processing. Yeah. Basically, Chris. Well, why don't you go to Google Earth, find it on the satellite, and then, put your cursor on it, see what the lat long is, and then use GPS to get to it. That's kind of what we're doing up at this exploration area we're going back up to this weekend. Well, that sucks, Alex. Heavy tree cover. Well, it can't be too big a mine then. It's got to be a pretty modest little thing.
Has you tried going back in time on Google Earth to see if it helps?
Yeah, Eva said, have you tried going back in time, some of the older stuff? You might also be able to find some aerial photography on, Montana Cadastral or My Land Matters or something. This weekend, we're going to be going up to that area where we just staked those two claims. We got to get in corner monuments, got to open up the road. And this will be the first time I've got to use a chainsaw in a long time. Well, laptop, what are you finding over there? Are you finding anything of any significance? Yeah, that would seem logical, Alex. Well, there you go, laptop. Sounds good. It is nice to be actually able to see the gold. I must admit, it is kind of fun as compared with Montana B, where you got to wait until you strip the resin. By the way, that thumbnail for the video, that's about 5 grams of electrolytic debris, which will turn into 3 to 4 grams of gold once we digest it. So that's that. This weekend, we're going to be headed out Thursday, and we're going to have to clear some access. And there's a lot of deadfall that has to be unfilled out of the way, But there's a total of 7 disturbances in the area that we want to examine, of which only 2 have we put boots on so far. So we got loads of stuff to do. We'll have lots of buckets for samples and stuff. So,
I still haven't gotten a notification from you.
So I haven't got a notification.
Nope. YouTube hates me.
Yep.
That's all.
Well, the guy who runs that channel, he's such a jerk. They're just trying to protect you. But anyhow, so we got a lot of interesting exploration to do this weekend. I hope David just says, Eva,
Hi.
hopefully there's not too much hard hiking. Hey, see, everyone's saying hi, Eva here.
Hi, everybody.
So we'll see how it goes in terms of that. Some of the corners that we want to get to look to be kind of strenuous. Some of them we can cut off some of the problems by taking some roads and this and that and the other. But it's an interesting, fairly steep hillside situation to deal with there. These are actually pretty good shape. If they were not covered with saplings hither and thither and stuff like that, any four-wheel drive pickup would be able to handle them no problem at all. The cat skinner who built those roads really knew his business, and the soils are pretty good too to hold up that well. But whoever it was pretty good at keeping a really steady grade going down a side hill cut. I mean, you're up there, you're looking, and it's just like a straight line up and down, just nice plain surface. So that is cool. Most of the roads have very little growth on. There's a few places where the saplings might be an issue. Most of the time it's just deadfall, which isn't a problem.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sure he was, Honey Bunny, especially this was probably done in the days of cable dozers.
Almost 19 billion.
This wasn't hydraulic ram dozer blade
Accelerating
things.
curve. Almost 19 billion.
Oh, we got a chainsaw to deal with it, Honey Bunny. Yep. Brand new Ryobi 18-inch chainsaw.
16.
I think that was an 18, wasn't it?
No, I believe it was a 16, dude.
I think it was an 18. That's what I was looking for.
I believe it was a 16.
Whatever.
Because we had problems finding the chain because all the chains were either 14 or 18.
I don't know. If they do, everyone around here ignores them because you can't go on these backwoods roads without a chainsaw and get through. Every season, several trees fall down on a regular basis. So everyone pretty much just carries a chainsaw with them, especially towards the early part of the season. But we get some pretty good winds up here, and it knocks over trees regularly.
Especially since the Forest Service left all those dead trees.
Yeah, they didn't thin the forest, so the beetles killed a lot, etc. Yep.
And when they had forest fires, they left them standing.
Yep. We have a fire extinguisher and a shovel and stuff with us. Say, we're on Forest Service land, but they allow cutting a deadfall, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, those work great if you got a good power source, Jean-Francois. It's just we don't have any. Is it heavier in terms of it's got more capacity or heavier in terms of it weighs more? Yeah, that's nice when you're stationary. With us, I mean, I'm going to be running, an electric motor, huh? I'm going to be running that saw hours this weekend, many hours of actual operation time, I would guess. We shall see. I expect to be to M2 about, well, by the end of the first date, I expect to be to M2. And these locations that we're going to be going to, we're going to refer to them by M numbers, M1, M2, like that. Last video was M1 and M2, but we can clearly see more disturbances in that area. There's also other places where there are water loving hardwoods sitting on the side of the mountain, and therefore very suspicious that there's either a working there or some kind of fracture in the rock that is, like leaking a spring or this or that. Either way, we got to go there. Also, the pre-existing roads in the area are a pretty good indication, that there's something there. So I say it's going to be fun trying to figure out exactly what's going on there, because you really can't tell from the satellite. It is far from obvious. There was a particular road array that I saw that I was looking at, and I'm going, I don't know what the heck's going on there. Once I got there, it was real obvious. It's like, oh, that makes perfect sense, because I am not real good at looking at satellite photographs, because it's a two-dimensional image, and this is anything but two-dimensional. There's a lot of third dimension going on here. Yeah, it would be nice, Alex. Yeah, I mean, we figured the actual slopes in the road itself run somewhere near 20% grades. And so those are pretty steep hillsides when your side hill access road is still running at a 20% grade. So it's going to be interesting, likely to stake a third claim too. Oh yeah, let's say they're pretty obvious from the satellite. Even if you can't see the road, you can see a different texture to the trees. There's this linear disturbance in the trees, so to speak. And it's pretty easy to see. Yeah, well, there's 1,500 foot of straight line through the trees. That's a road, and it was highly reliable. There are some places where the roads kind of disappear, but most of it is pretty easy to see. So anyhow, say we got to go down there and do a lot of corner staking, a lot of examination, a lot of sampling. See if we can find some place where we have actual access to the mineralized zone. It looks like it's running right down a water course, which theoretically somewhere we should be get to it. Yeah, you're right, Alex. That can help a lot. And another thing is, quite often when you switch from different photographs, the sun's at a different angle. And that can help out too. But it's surprising how hard it is to see some stuff. Like the stuff we did last year, virtually none of that is obvious from the satellite. Hey, Ricky, how's it going? Whereas, say, these things are all obvious from the satellite. So, that makes it a little easier to spot, but it's hard to tell what we're going to, what we can't see. So, and say I love this part of the game. I would like it a lot more if it wasn't so uppy downy, or if I was a lot younger. But yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. I think going to be a lot of work, a lot of physical effort,
and some good video.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some good videos and stuff. But we shall see what we can see. See if we can find any place where there's any adits that are still open or anything like that. Do I have to have a really long surveyor's tape measure yet? I got a 100-footer, but that's it. I've got a laser rangefinder. Um, hey Shaggy, how's it going?
Hi, Shaggy.
So I could do that if I just want to get a line of sight with a relative amount of precision. Right now, we're really looking to get the lay of the land. And we're going to see if Eva can do corner trees while I'm slicing through a bunch of, I call it pickup sticks. It's towards the edge of this forest through a little valley there, whatever the winds have been through. And I mean, there's trees laying everywhere. Luckily, they're only about this big. So it should be pretty easy to cut my way through there. And that's about all there is trees. There's not much in the way of bushes. There's a lot of vertical trees, still living ones and stuff. So it's generally shaded. And it doesn't, just grow big bushes or whatever. There's huckleberries and little stuff. Yeah, David, this is going to be a little bit more strenuous than the game, but that's what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of pickup sticks just scattered across the ground, so to speak. Yeah, honey bunny, you just have to be careful not to wrestle a grizzly bear for it. Not that I'm aware of, Jean-Francois, although there are machines that are like little tiny excavators, backhoes that you can attach to a quad. I don't think there's any snakes up there, honey bunny, not at 7,000 feet in Montana. Although over at the ranch, we did find a really nice snake skin underneath one of the tarps, that one had shed. It was probably a gopher snake. It was pretty good size. It was totally perfect. I mean, you had the head, the eye covers, all the way down to the tip of the tail. Just beautiful shed.
It's still over there. Going to bring it home.
Yep. But at that elevation, we have to worry about bears. Still haven't seen one yet, but we have to be concerned with making noise and everything. There you go, Lars. I'll freeze them for you. You got things like snowplow blades and stuff like that, but we're just going to have to work our way through the trees, cut chunks of downed ones out. And the standing ones are not going to be a problem. They're far enough apart that it will not be difficult to, clear a path. It'd be a little windy, but not bad at all. I mean, just if you drew a straight line, you're probably going to go 15, 20 feet to either side of it, one part or another, but that's it. And so again, I don't anticipate any difficulty there. Just work. Also, we'll have to be careful not to dull the blade. I have a spare blade and I have a file to sharpen them, but I prefer, not to dull it in the first place. And down trees, yeah, I'll have to be careful. Yeah. No, that's not the problem here, Jean-François, except very small portion of the top of the road does have sort of that. Hey, Chris, how's it going? But not any substantial amount of it, at least from where we can currently get the quad down to M2. Just one little stretch of a bunch of tightly spaced saplings. From M1 to M345, we haven't been on that road yet, so we don't know. Hopefully it's not bad either. The road's wide enough that if there's a tree growing in it, you can usually get around it without too much. Yeah, Chris, that might work. I'm planning on taking and levering up any trees that are directly laying on the ground. And then maybe, if the bark looks dirty, scrape that bark off so I don't actually, run through any sand or anything like that. And, I only need to make 2 cuts per tree, down tree, to get through. Yeah, it ain't going to happen where I'm at, Chris. I understand what you're saying. It'd be great for peeling off the bark, but that ain't going to happen where I'm at. We shall see. I may wind up, just depending on everything. I've got a big digging bar, and I may cut some little chunks of tree for a fulcrum and a brace, and, so I can lever it up, stick a chalk under there, so to speak, and then use the shovel to just scrape the bark off. I don't know. I'm no expert at this stuff. I don't know. I've run a chainsaw maybe 2 or 3 hours my entire life. I'm comfortable I can do it safely, but there's so many things I haven't ever done before that I'll just have to see what's the easiest way to do it. But I am a little bit paranoid about dirt, Most of the stuff we have to do, Ricky, there's too many trees in the way. I do have a theodolite. Okay, Jean-Francois, I got the note. Thank you very much. I would have already done it, except my browser doesn't have an extra tab showing like it usually does. Yep. And so I say I'll just be doing stuff. Yeah, large screwdriver. I've got large screws, small pry bars and stuff. A flat bar ought to work real good on that.
You should be able to just go up to that thing I showed you and click exit and get your regular window back.
Okay, you want me to exit my live stream? I'd have to shut down the current version of the browser. Not going to happen while I'm on live stream. Yeah, exactly, honey bunny. A GAD bar. Well, I'm not sure what a GAD bar is, and right now I can't look it up like I usually can because I didn't pay close attention when I booted up the browser this time to make sure it was showing individual tabs up top. Don't ask me why it does that. Have no clue. Yeah, I don't know. I understand, Dave. I've got a Sawzall, but it's a battery-powered one, and it's going to have limited usefulness. Spud bar. Oh, okay. And hit Control T. I hate to do anything right now, but I'll write that down. Control T, new tab. I'll try that when it's in this configuration, because usually about 2/3 of the time when I boot it up, hi Brian, it will have the usual thing. There's a tab there and it has a little plus on the end, and you hit the plus, it makes a new tab and blah, blah, blah. but not now. I'll try that when I'm not on the live stream. Hey, Brian, I was wondering something. You're using the aeration to keep your oxygen up. Have you ever tried using an ozone generator like they use for like jacuzzis as your oxidizer supply? That's what I was going to ask you, Chris. What the heck is the positive or negative of using an ozone generator to supply the oxidizing potential to the solution, as opposed to like Brian is using chemicals that lose effectiveness over time and stuff? I know, Alex, I say I'm not going to try playing with it while I got a live stream going, but I know they make ozone generators for things like jacuzzis. Yeah, I say like the sodium percarbonate and stuff. The thing is, with an ozone generator, basically all you need is air and electricity. And I mean, there's nothing really that's more oxidizing than ozone, not unless you got some hypergolic stuff like nitrogen tetroxide, maybe. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Angry Pixies work, Chris? Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure where you buy those on Amazon and what the shipping is, but I have a feeling the hazmat fee would be pretty substantial.
Pixies?
Angry Pixies.
Yeah, and I was asking, are they Cornish Pixies?
I don't know, Chris. Even wants to know, are those Cornish Pixies? Because
if they are, I will get out the spell. I know how to dispel Cornish Pixies.
She says she knows how to dispel Cornish Pixies.
They teach you that at Hogwarts, you know.
Oh, you think the last was way too hot, huh? Anyhow, okay, Alex. Yeah, that say to me, some time of electrolysis or something might be quite effective. I'm no electrochemist though. Another thing that we're kind of inadvertently doing, right? Advertently now, but it would, just because the sedimentation in the pregnant solution has plugged up the filters a little bit in the resin cartridges to where it's slowed down the flow, but not nearly stopped it. It's down to, 20-25% of max flow. But because we have plenty of solution, we just said, screw it. I'll just keep doing this to see if our loading goes better that way. By giving it more contact time, we'll see what happens. And we'll get the first data on that tomorrow. Because we really didn't have enough, we didn't have enough concentration in the solution to reliably tell if it was dropping between the cartridges. Now this stuff from the last batch, it should have plenty for us to see the changes that should be there when we're getting good loading. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on there. So we're still kind of trying to fine tune some of the nuance here on the leaching, even though we've been doing it for over a year. So we got lots of things kind of in process in terms of research and inadvertent research and trying this because why not? It wants to do it itself anyway. But we're having a good time, and he was being a big help out at the mill, feeding that bob mill. Makes a big difference. Um, Tomorrow, say just this morning, in a couple hours, she got 300 pounds through there while we did other stuff too. Um, Towards the end of the time we were out there, it looked like the temperature in the uh, stripping circuit was dropping a bit. It went down from 60 to like 54 centigrade, according to the indicators, which is odd. And I'm not sure. We may have burnt out the um, the heating element. And of course, not really designed for what we're using it for. It's just an aquarium heater. But we have a spare that we can use if needed. So I'm not terribly worried about that. We are still pulling uh, gold off of the resin. We got probably about 6 hours of good stripping last time, and then we had to leave for the weekend. Today we had 3 hours. It's probably up to temperature for one, maybe more. Yep, that's what we use, Chris. And then we had to pull out the thermostat module, bypass that, and go from there. And it seemed to work just fine. 300 watts was adequate. I think the one I've got right now in backup is the 500-watt one. I think we pulled it out and went to 300. But this time when we left, because we were leaving it for the whole weekend, and the little pumps and the electrolytic cell run on the photovoltaic system, we just took the electrolytic cell apart and shut everything down. Today, we left the pumps and the electrolytic cell going, shut off the heating because that takes the generator. And it should, have coasted for many hours at sufficient temperature to actually strip resin. Um, and then we'll go back there tomorrow, fire it up again, heat it up again, and go from there. If we have trouble heating, say I'm virtually certain we have a spare heater there that I think we've bypassed that thermostat also. It wasn't too hard. Lauren, helped me on that, and he knows enough about such things. When we pulled it apart, it's like, yep, there's your thermostat right there. We'll take this wire, unsolder it from here, solder it over to there, and then put everything back together again with some silicone to seal it all up. And it's been working quite reliably. It was pretty cheap, in the neighborhood of $15, I believe, for a 300-watt heater. The negative was it had a thermostat on it that would not allow it to go over 90 Fahrenheit. We need to take it up to 60 C, which is 140, maybe 150 Fahrenheit. I don't know. It's pretty warm. You don't want to put your finger in it. But they have worked just fine. And it was an easy modification. We cut apart the little endy thing, pulled it all apart, pulled it out, bypassed that, silicone, put it back together. I do think you could separate the plus from the negative by solution separation code. Not sure what you're saying there, Ricky. We have our electrolytic cell has an anode cathode separated by less than an inch. It's a carbon steel anode and a stainless steel cathode. And the reason we're using a carbon steel anode is because it doesn't deposit things that we have to have trouble getting out of the bead. We tried a stainless steel anode before, and it was putting stuff into solution like chrome or nickel, whatever, some high temperature stuff that once it got into the, what do you call it, the electrolytic debris, that's it. You just can't get rid of it. Well, you might if you really know your shit, or if you had a really big furnace or something, but I don't know. But yeah, it made life real difficult. So we just went back to carbon steel and haven't had any problem. They do wear out over time. Yeah, I'm sure it can be done, Chris, but with my budget and my laboratory, it's simpler to just replace a 2-inch wide strip of carbon steel 8 inches long once every couple of months. Not very difficult or expensive. I tried a carbon anode this week, and it has so much resistance that the amperage dropped almost nothing. I mean, I was getting, with the steel, it was like 0.4 amps at 3.35 volts. But with the carbon, I was getting like 0.01 amps at 0.35 volts. So I don't know how much, over voltage put in there to compensate for. So I was like, I know the other works just fine. Entirely possible, Chris. When in doubt, go back to something simple, cheap that works, which is exactly what I did. So anyhow.
Chris, have any theories as to why those crystal clusters have gold in them?
Eva would like to know, Chris, do you have any idea why the crystal clusters tend to have more gold in it than the more mineralized looking quartz, especially the stuff that's really had a lot leached out of it? Because you can tell by the density, it's like half the density. But as I say, we get everything seems to be working.
We're talking crystal clusters like this, but this one hasn't had the iron staining on the surface removed yet. But when they're clean, they're perfectly clear. I mean, they're practically Herkimer diamond quality clear, some of them.
Yes, I know, Chris. And I say, since I didn't know how to calculate that or whatever, agreed, Chris. But that seems to be the best quality, best concentrations of gold too. Kind of strange. I've never seen that happen before. Say, since I didn't know how to do the calculations or whatever, I just went straight back to what I knew worked. And it seems to be working just fine. So, as I say, that anode that I was using was 2-inch by 1/8-inch steel. And I now have, 2-inch by 1/4-inch steel. I think I got some 2-inch by, yeah, I know I do, 2-inch by 3/8 inch. And so say it was pretty interesting. Here's another good one for you, Chris. We're getting a lot of silver in the solution, 3 times the amount of silver as the gold. Now, it may be that the silver is preventing some of the loading capacity of the resin from being used by gold, although we think it's more likely to be getting kicked off by gold later on, just from very limited laboratory testing. Is there any kind of a cementation material that we could use to cement the silver without cementing the gold. Okay. Conversely, if the resin is kicking the silver off and allowing the gold to plate, is there something we could put like in the last cartridge that would cement the silver out of solution pretty reliably? Like, we use the copper to cement it out of the, what do you call it? Silver nitrate from the parting. Well, unless we very carefully calibrated chloride, and then we'd have to filter afterwards, I would think, we might wind up with a lot of chloride in the actual bulk leach solution out there on the pad or in the tank that would then make an insoluble silver as opposed to a recoverable silver. So I was hoping, something like iron or copper or something like that we just take like, shavings or something and put it in the last cartridge holder and scavenge silver perhaps. It's not a critical thing because the value is just, not that much. Even at 3 times the concentration, you're still only looking at 1/15 of the value or something to that effect. It would be more of a nuisance if it's loading up onto the resin and preventing the loading of gold. But we did seem to find that the gold seems to preferentially adhere to the resin and kick off the silver in order to do that. It'd be nice to have a big budget where every test we could take samples along the series of cartridges and send them all off to the lab for complete analysis. About $100 per sample, 5 samples per thing. Gets a little pricey, darn it. Would be cool to have the information though. So, as I say, we got more stuff, and that doesn't even bring into the glycine testing sort of thing. And we're also starting to digest the gravity concentrates before smelting those too to get a high quality gold. The last time we tried it, did you use elevated temperatures or not, little one?
No, this time it's going to be elevated
Yeah.
temperatures. It's going to be strong acid, elevated temperatures.
Yeah, last time she used fairly dilute nitric and standard temperatures. The next time is going to be more concentrated nitric with an elevated temperature. The idea is to come up with a solid that we can just directly smelt into a high quality, high purity gold bead, and then we put the silver into the nitric acid solution, which we can then just precipitate out with copper. That's something we do anyhow with the parting nitric that Eva was using for her assaying and refining stuff. So it's we know how to do that. Not too hard. That's kind of, we got so many things going on. It's just crazy. Crazy, I tell you. So anyhow, those are the things we're all working on right now. And we'll be giving as much information as we're able to. But yeah, we're just having a great time doing stuff. Absolutely. Not to my knowledge, Shaggy. But who knows? They may figure it out. That's the idea, Chris. Another thing we found is the furnace that we have We've used it pretty harshly, and it's trouble reaching the melting point of gold. One thing we found was that we're running it off of a generator, and what you were getting it up to what, about 1920 or something?
It was coming within 50 degrees.
And then it wasn't going any higher. When I unplugged the agitation pumps for the tank, then it stabilized at about 1945.
Almost exactly where it needed to be, but we still had to bring that bead out and use the torch on it.
Are you only collecting the native gold and silver out of your cons? Well, we're also collecting the magnetics in a separate container for now. But yeah, we're taking the cons, panning them down, getting the real heavies, the gold, electrum, stuff like that. And then we're using a nitric acid digestion on that. We can cement the silver out of that nitric later, and we can take the gold and smelt it down into a bead. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. This thing is somewhere. Hintern promised us a new furnace last year. It hasn't shown up. I know they've had some complications over there with the company. Much more important business deals and stuff like this
If it happens, it happens.
Got complicated. So we didn't really want to do a whole lot of effort into this furnace on the assumption that a really nice one was going to be showing up soon anyhow.
Well, we also may be able to get a muffle furnace from Max. We still need to talk to
Max. Now, another thing, which is why getting up to 1945 is really annoying, Shaggy. But what we did this time is, once it's stabilized, brought it out, and I took a torch and heated it up a little bit to make sure it was thoroughly melted. Okay. But we have ways we can deal with that. But it's just one of those things. It's a little bit annoying, but what the heck, we'll figure out a good solution here sometime. Yeah, I agree, Chris. That furnace used to get up to, almost 2,000.
Yeah, it used to.
And
we've gotten up to 1990 before.
Yeah, we've had it up to 1990, but I agree with you. The heating element, if we shorten that up a little bit, it might work fine. But I hesitate to do any work in that furnace at the current time, because as soon as I start doing anything, it may just require a whole lot of work to get it running again.
I will make it work.
Right?
I am used to doing hoopty things. Okay.
We can always, torch it if we need to. Wrap it in lead foil and put it on a cupel and torch it. But I say we're seeing what we can do at the moment. We got so many different things to do. I mean, it took me 2 or 3 days of labor just to rebuild that impact mill. I don't know how long the rebuild is going to last. I'm not sure how long the movable jaw plates in the RC46 are going to go. One of the problems is when you repeatedly hard face them, even if you keep them from warping, they tend to shrink linear, I agree, Chris. There's a lot of different things we can do, and most of them are better done in the off season if you have a choice. But we shall see what we shall see. I say, if the concept was there was going to be a nice furnace on its way. We should have had it in January, according to the original schedule. And, that didn't work. Oh, well, these things happen. Another thing I could do, Chris, is I could take some fire brick and use a wet saw to cut the blocks to where I can stack them and stuff in there and get a pretty good thing. The other question is insulation is different than just refractory too. So I'm not sure. And by the time it's such a small furnace, by the time you start putting in other stuff, like fire brick and then maybe a little KO wool behind it, you don't have much furnace left over. It's getting pretty small. So say we'll deal with that when we have to. And I can probably use just a grinder with a cutting blade too, Chris. But just don't know how good an insulator it is, because with that furnace there, the thermal transmission, it's stabilizing in terms of 1500 watts in, 1500 watts out at about 1950. Cuts with diamond saw and a side grinder. Yeah, I could do that. Got any waste oil? Not at the moment. Hi, Walt. How's it going? Again, I would prefer to spend about 1/2 of 1 hour on a furnace right now, because I got a lot more things than I can possibly do. I'm fixing stuff as I need to right now because I just don't have time to do anything else. It's crazy. Just got so much stuff. But yeah. Oh, we're looking for part of the issue is that we don't have line power, so we're running off a generator. And yeah, exactly, Chris. And so what we have is a 110 volt little miniature furnace about this big. And we have really put it through the ringer. So it needs, a couple of days of work. Wow, somebody at the door? What's up?
I borrow your passkey. I locked mine in one of the
Sure.
rooms. I don't know which one.
Oh. There you go, Henry.
Yeah, I'll bring it back.
All righty. And as I say, because we're trying to do it on 110 volts instead of 240, we don't have line power and this and that and the other, life becomes kind of difficult in terms of, there's not too many keys that fit that lock. And so we just been using that furnace for now. And a guy who works with a company that makes furnaces, industrial size furnaces, said they wanted to, get into something a little smaller too as an option for some people. And so we worked with them a little bit in terms of what would be helpful and useful and this and that and the other. And then they were going to make a prototype and send it to us for freebies, all free and for nothing, just so we could use it and see how it worked and what worked, what didn't, and this and that and the other. And then they just, as it is with the company, sometimes things show up and you just got to, change your focus. And that's kind of what happened. So we were waiting, figuring, we don't care. Oh, don't worry about it, Walt. I say the one we got wasn't ideal anyhow. So we'll just leave it for now. It would be nice to have a 240 volt furnace, but we don't have any 240 volt power supply to it. So I say we've got a variety of constraints that just make life difficult for at the moment.
Yeah.
and we'll worry about that when it changes. I do appreciate it, Walt. And if we get something in particular that we need, I'll let you know. But right now, it's just one of those deals that we've made it work till now. Uh, I'm pretty sure it does somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's got a 240 volt outlet on it. Okay, honey bunny. But again, it's one of those things I'd rather not deal with it until I have to because I got so many other things. It is so nice to just be looking out at the area around the RC-46 and see the piles of rock disappearing right now, just grinding them and going. That's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It was nice to find that little piece of wire gold this morning too. That was kind of neat. I do like having a gravity circuit in line. That is nice. Oh, and the as people who saw the video, it does look like the VDR, the Infinity Gold VDR mat, is doing a better job than the Gold Hog mat. I don't know what particular version of Gold Hog mat that is. It does a pretty good job on the fine gold, but it does seem to let through some of the larger gold compared to the VDR mat. And by larger, I mean 5/1000ths of an inch, which would be 0.005 in the neighborhood of 120 mesh.
Front seat of my car.
Oh, really? So anyhow, things have been going fairly well. Yeah, Chris, the Gold Hog mat was doing a pretty good job on the 1 to 2,000ths. But when it was in the number one slot, the ahead of the VDR mat, it wasn't picking up as much of the 3 to 5,000ths gold as the VDR was when it was in the number one slot. Okay, by changing them, back and forth and looking at the stuff. Not that I can recall in specific. However, I will tell you that since I changed the rotor tips and the liner plates on the bob mill, it does seem we're getting more angular gold in the cons as opposed to little balls. It used to be virtually all little balls, and now we're getting a lot more angular. Would you agree with that, little one?
Yes.
Yeah. Eva agrees. So in the milling, I say with the larger tip clearances and the taller wear bars on the perimeter plates, it does seem to be not balling up the gold as well. Just a minute, Henry.
I'm sliding this up to the door, and it wasn't me who opened it. I just got it out of the mail this way.
Okay. Nothing urgent. So, anyhow, so that, okay, that's not a bad idea, Chris. But that was something that was noticeable after the rebuild on the mill. Okay. Okay, Chris. And I'm also trying to see how good things work without nearly so much magnetics filling everything. And I say we just got so many different things we're playing with right now. It's ridiculous. I'd like to keep it to 1 or 2 experiments at a time instead of 10. But, reality is reality. When you got to rebuild a mill, you got to rebuild a mill. When you screw up, well, then you got to deal with the screw up. And I think in terms of wear, the idea of, thicker wear bars makes a lot of sense. I'm not getting any 100 mesh plus past the second mat. 100 mesh is what? Yeah, 059. Yeah, I'm recovering 0 100 mesh plus in the third mat when I put the VDR in front. It'd be interesting if I had a second VDR mat to go behind it. That would be interesting to see what happens. I'm also surprised at just how effective that very short run of sawtooth silicone mat is. It's insane. We got like maybe 12 inches.
That's working real well.
And it's getting more gold by a substantial amount than 3 feet of VDR mat below it. It really seems to be grabbing that gold well. So I'd say it's quite interesting. Also, according to Eva, there appears to be an association between the amount of gold and or silver in the ore and the consumption of Eco Goldex. And while we have not proven precisely, or measured precisely what it is, it seems to be, according to Eva, a fairly reliable indicator of how much you are actually dissolving, i.e. how much gold is in the rock that is going into solution. Would you agree with that, little one?
To some extent, yes. And I believe temperature also seems to change the consumption curve.
Yeah, that would make sense. The temperature would affect the curve. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this stuff, Chris. It's amazing. And that's another thing I could do. I could make another stretch of silicone sawtooth to put below the intermediate mat, so to speak. That would be an interesting experiment to see what happens there. Yeah. So we have lots of fun stuff we can do. Oh, so many things to do, so little time to do it in. But yeah, we're definitely having a good time here, doing some wild stuff. Oh, does anyone out there have some specific questions or whatever? And Brian Smith, do you have any opinion on the consumption of Eco Goldex to the amount of gold dissolved? Flat silicone, some extra fine expanded metal. I don't know if I could find extra fine expanded, but I might be able to find some small punch plate or something. Do you think that would work? You have an inverse effect. In other words, if you get more consumption of Eco Gold X, you have less gold in solution? Is that what you're saying, Brian? Because if that was the case, I'd expect that it had to do the other way. The more Eco Gold X that is consumed, not the higher concentration you have in solution, but the amount that disappears out of solution, the more amount of gold put into solution. That's a good question, Chris. Eva is adamant it's not going to be at the Discovery Cabin. Less Eco Gold X in solution. Does that mean that if you use a lower concentration in solution, you get more gold? Or when you start with the same amount in solution and you wind up with less after leaching? Yeah, okay. That's what I'm trying to elucidate here.
I will have some figures on that.
Okay, Chris. The other problem with that, Chris, might be the metal, because real small expanded. Hi, Shiny. Yeah, that it does seem to be, Chris. A lot of that real small expanded. Yep, that's what Eva would say too, Brian. Is made out of stainless or brass or things like that, which we can't use in solution since our sluice is actually using solution as the liquid phase.
I think what we're using right now in the sluice is working fine.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's doing pretty good, but it never hurts to test and see if you can find something that works even better.
Well, the other thing we have to test is that bath mat stuff.
The bath mat, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awful lot like miner's moss.
Yeah, I say we got
something that's a finer grain than miner's moss, though. I'm looking at green scrubby material if I can get enough big enough piece.
Yeah, we could try it. You can buy larger sheets of that stuff. Usually, we used to buy it at. They might have it over at the chef's store, little one.
Oh, they may.
We used.
I mean, I saw that they sold.
Oh, you're welcome, Brian.
They sell the small ones over at the chef's store, but I haven't seen big ones.
Yeah, we're trying to help each other out. I appreciate all your help. The we try and make sure on a lot of videos that I see them and I make some kind of comment because I know it helps the algorithm and such. But I also, I'm interested in a lot of stuff. Brian, have you had any YouTube drop-offs? Now, that's a good question that I can tell you this much because I don't use the analytics too much. But I can tell you this, for someone with 20,000 subscribers and I've got 18 people on a live stream, what does that tell you?
The person to ask about YouTube drop-off would be Jason at Flower Gold Wizards because he manages his channel very well.
I would agree, Brian. If you talk to Jason at Flower Gold Wizards, he will he pays a lot of attention to his metrics and things like that.
He is the guru that you want to pay attention to if you want to make a big YouTube channel. Dude's a guru.
Well, it appears to me that once subscribed, you're always on the tally. But in terms of active subscribers, my guess would be I'm in the hundreds. I certainly don't think it's in the multiple thousands. Otherwise, I would have a lot more views and probably a lot more comments, especially with people that I don't recognize. Most of the comments that I see are people I recognize. So that tells me that the universe of observers is relatively small. That's my thing. Just get the ABC test and compare. Have no idea what that is, Brian. But I don't know what kind of games they play, but I am not monetized because I don't want more people than I have to. I mean, I wouldn't mind, like we got 30 people on the live stream, might be able to handle that. But if I got 100 or 200 people on the live stream, how could I possibly keep up? Say to me, it just doesn't fit into what I'm trying to do.
I don't like the fact that that was opened.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just wondering who.
No.
I'm thinking Tampa. Which could go badly.
Anyhow, so as I say, I'm not playing the algorithms, so I don't pay attention to the algorithms and stuff. I know Jason does. I presume people like Dan Hurd and Jeff Williams do too, but I don't know how responsive they would be to questions and such. I just really have no idea. Wow, that looks complicated.
Yeah, you want to take a look at this number.
Yeah, Jeff Williams, I'm sure, has done a lot of analysis on what works and what doesn't.
Oh, Jeff Williams, too, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time he has to talk to people. Very busy person.
I wouldn't be surprised, Shiny. I know poor Jason, he's got a full-time job, too. And,
Wow.
and a family.
It's already gone up another million, so I wrote down the 489.
Yeah. Anyhow, somebody here wants to jump in, and I will be happy to let her.
In case you missed it, almost $19 billion was added this week. The curve is accelerating. Hi, everybody. Hi. Anyway, absolutely nothing is going on in the world. Well, actually, I think some things have gone on this week. There was a presidential debate. It was illuminating. Fascinating, really. Especially Dr. Jill. Fascinating. Hi, David. Hi, Shani. Yeah. Would not surprise me, Shaggy. That was some good news that happened this week. You may have missed it, but sometime here recently, Tractor Supply, of all people, got in trouble. Tractor Supply got in trouble because they apparently went full on diversity, equity, and inclusion and, full on rainbow mafia in their employee break areas, etc. And the news got to a gentleman named Robbie Starbuck. At least that's what he goes by on the platform formerly known as Twitter. So he put out the whistleblowing literature from their break rooms. Now, I know you're not going to believe this, but Tractor Supply is not the kind of place that leftists normally shop. As a matter of fact, Tractor Supply is the kind of place that sane people normally shop. And the sane people were extraordinarily PO'd to discover that their hard-earned dollars that they spent at Tractor Supply was going to rainbow mafia organizations rather than veterans and Future Farmers of America and 4-H and all this nice, normal, sane things. So they let Tractor Supply know this in no uncertain terms, and they stopped spending their money and closed their wallets. And the stock did very, very scary things. And then the CEO of Tractor Supply actually pulled his head out of his fundamental orifice and showed some common sense. He put out a genuine, well, it may be genuine, apology letter. He said, "We completely screwed up. We didn't read the room right. We're doing a full 180 on all this BS. All of this current BS is going away, and we're dedicating even more of our money to helping your local communities, your FFA, your 4-H, and all this other stuff than we were before. And we're rolling out a nice new fundraiser for veterans right now as a way of saying I'm sorry." So everybody was like, "Okay, that's cool. We'll go back and spend our money again. And if you screw up again, you're really going to hear it this time." But that was a very, very fast reversal. It was quite impressive. They're not normally that fast. I was very, very happy. Yeah, that is true, honey bunny. They had a little bit of problems with their chicken feed. Speaking of chicken feed, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she has beautiful chickens. And she was asking, how do I get my girls to make lots and lots of chicks, my broody girls, and how do I get my eggs to be perfect? And I'm like, your chickens are dinosaurs, dude. You want to have fun? You get a bunch of live crickets and some live grasshoppers, and you put your chickens in an enclosed area, and you release those live crickets and those live grasshoppers in the enclosed area with the chickens, and you watch the fun. It is hilarious. But beyond that, you get a nice little baby wading pool, and you put minnows in it because chickens love minnows. Chickens love leeches and grubs and mealworms and minnows and regular worms and snakes, lizards, you name it. If it's meat, they'll eat it. I have actually seen them eat raw hamburger. Okay. I've seen them eat pate of various organ meats as well. And they make big, beautiful eggs when they do it. So she did. And she reported back and said, my yolks are double the size they used to be. Deep, deep pumpkin orange to almost red. And she had a couple of double yolked eggs this week. So she was very happy. Oh, yeah, Shaggy. And Shiny Rocks, yeah. No chicken I ever saw that actually ate real food will eat that store-bought anything. They just forget it, Forget it. Totally not a chicken thing. Also in the news this week is something that's going to impact the mining industry if everybody will get off their collective rear ends. The Supreme Court, in their somewhat semi-infinite wisdom, they don't channel the infinite wisdom very often, okay? So it's somewhat semi. They overturned the Chevron deference. Now, to put this in a nutshell, what this means, formerly, if a yo-yo bureaucrat with a degree in intersectional gender music theory who happened to work for the Forest Service decided to interpret a law in a way that was absolutely bullshit and totally ridiculous, even if any reasonable person, even if a judge looking at how they interpreted that law could say, where the hell did that come from? Well, if you tried to sue because you were on the right side and the so-called expert was not, under the Chevron deference, basically the judge had a perfect place to hide. He said, yeah, these regulations make absolutely zero sense and they're utterly and completely full of bovine excrement, but Chevron deference, you lose. You have to follow this regulation, whatever it may be, even if it isn't written down, even if it's never written down, etc., etc. This was not a very good thing, obviously. Well, now the Chevron deference is gone. So the goddess was thinking about this, and the goddess has told dude over here, we have got to find out who in our state is working on getting mining districts running again. Because we need to start reactivating mining districts around the country. We need to start banding together in our little mining districts as miners and as prospectors. And the first thing the goddess is doing is going through all of the old mining laws, all the few mining laws, legislation on the books with a fine tooth comb. Because I kind of get the feeling that, for instance, the Forest Service absolutely does not have the right to deny you access to your mining claim, even if it is winter range for elk, as an example, you know. And I do believe that they don't actually have clear guidelines as to fines and fees and filing paperwork, etc., in the actual law. I want to dig up what they actually have to say about that kind of thing. Because the malarkey regime has formed, I suppose you could call them focus groups. They are getting together all of the stakeholders to discuss codifying regulation in legislation. The problem with this is their definition of a stakeholder includes seriously demented green weenies and environmental nutjobs and eco-terrorists. And the goal of the administration is to stop the use of public lands to the greatest extent humanly possible, not just for mining, for timber, for agriculture, for cattle leasing, all the other little things that we, the people, should have the right to do on our public lands, which are supposed to be held in stewardship for our free use and enjoyment. Now, free use and enjoyment does not mean shutting down rights of way, putting up gates and telling people you just can't use this road anymore. We decided this road has to go back to nature. So no, it's not here anymore. Go away. That kind of thing is something we now have a golden opportunity to stop. And one of the ways we have a golden opportunity to stop this is by getting our mining districts started again, getting our mining districts active, getting our public lands lobbying organizations, like what's that one you mentioned, Bear?
Public lands for the people.
Public lands for the people, etc., to start mounting class action lawsuits and bury these people in lawfare. Make them justify every goddamn regulation they have come up with going all the way back. Now, overturning Chevron is not going to do anything about past injustices, but forcing them to A, put all of these so-called regulations in writing, and B, defend those regulations from a legal standpoint is going to cause a great deal of inconvenience. And it's going to give us a small window of opportunity wherein we can roll back a lot of this shit and then fight a holding action so that I will get to that. And thank you. It is a fantastic hat. This, by the way, is my deluxe tinfoil hard hat with the cat ears for added reception and the brass deflector bow for deflection. It is the perfect hat to wear if you want to intimidate IRS agents. I will say that. That's what it's for. But this is the thing. We need to band together and get ready to strike now. Because while the goddess would love to think that the big guys are lining up their high-powered lawyers over there at Hecla and Highcroft and First Majestic and all the other mines, what few there are, that are still operating in this country, lining up their lawyers to go marching into court and say, well, when are you going to start patenting land again so that we can no longer have to pay you annual fees. What about this regulation? What about that regulation? The goddess ain't going to hold her breath. I can tell you that. I am not holding my breath on that issue. I would love to think the miners, the timber people, the agriculture people, the cattle leasers are lining up to get this stuff nailed down and get these regulations thrown out so we can consolidate a good foundation to fight legislation from in the future. I don't think that's what's going on. I really don't. So there is that. But yeah. As to the tinfoil hat, you can get the ears that you cover in tinfoil at any Walmart in the little girls' headband section. That's where they hide the ears. You can get the bow by getting some nice brass wire and tying yourself a very pretty bow. The hard hat is just a standard hard hat, believe it or not. Oh, but there is a pre-1982 penny in the front and in the back, or there should be, because it's very, very important. You must have those pennies. They're contact points for the emanation of the goddess vibes. Okay, that's what they're for. But yeah, we have a golden opportunity right now, if you'll excuse the pun, to get a hell of a lot of regulation thrown right the hell out, not just in mining, but in other things, and to consolidate a good position from which to fight for sane, practical, crystal clear legislation that no future bureaucrats can fuck with easily. This is now the time to act. So, go forth and reactivate your mining districts. Speaking of mining, which there is some going on in the world these days, let's see what's going on here. Hedge funds are hoarding cobalt amid the battery metal slump. There's a sentence the goddess wasn't expecting to see on the 2024 bingo card. Hedge funds, including Anchorage Capital Advisors and Square Point Capital LLP, have been building positions in cobalt by buying up physical material. As tumbling spot prices and a more liquid futures market create new trading opportunities in the battery metal. Cobalt is a relatively tiny and specialized market compared with commodities like copper or oil, and prices have dropped to the lowest in more than 7 years as the market is flooded with production from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Indonesia. The hedge funds' moves are the latest signs of financial players getting involved in physical metal trades. Fingers crossed they go after silver and gold next. As money flows back into commodities while oversupplied metal markets create opportunities to make a profit by buying at cheap spot prices. It's also reviving memories from almost a decade ago when funds including Pala Investments took advantage of weak cobalt prices to buy up piles of metal in a bet on the nascent energy transition. The bet paid off as prices soared over the next couple of years. At the time, the absence of liquid futures market meant that buying real-world cobalt was the only ways available to bet on the rising prices. Today, the situation looks a little different. Cobalt futures trading has taken off on CME Group's COMEX exchange, creating a way for traders to hedge their physical positions in the newly liquid futures market. The ballooning surplus has also led to a widening gap between depressed spot prices and higher priced futures on the COMEX, with contracts for delivery in a year's time having traded as much as 20% higher than spot prices. The wide discount between spot and futures prices creates opportunities for cash and carry trades. If spot prices surge, owners of physical metal would be able to sell their cobalt at a big profit. And even if they don't, they can lock in a return by selling futures. SquarePoint has been buying cobalt metal from traders, according to people familiar with the matter, while Anchorage has been buying both cobalt metal and cobalt hydroxide, an intermediate product in the production of cobalt sulfate that goes into EV batteries. Anchorage has also been active in trading on CME, said some of the people who asked not to be identified as the information is private. Representatives for Anchorage and SquarePoint declined to comment. While cash and carry trades are commonplace in larger commodities like aluminum and copper, there's an added layer of risk and complexity for traders looking to capture the spread in the cobalt market because the CME contracts are cash settled. That means the funds can't deliver their cobalt to the exchange when they're ready to close out the trade and would have to find a buyer for the metal in a small and illiquid physical market. That might not be easy given the market's already awash with excess metals. Surging supply and weaker than expected sales in the EV sector have contributed to a record surplus in the market this year, and many in the industry are pessimistic about the prospects of a rebound. The rise in popularity of lithium ion phosphate batteries, which don't require cobalt, also poses a threat to demand. One cause for optimism has come from China's Strategic Stockpiling Agency, which has been mopping up surplus inventories in record volumes this year, in a trend that underscores the metal's strategic value both in electric vehicles and defense. The U.S. has also made inquiries about buying metal from traders in the past, and is seeking to reinvigorate its own stockpiling program. Yeah, that'll be the day. Last time around, Pala and other funds sold their cobalt to a listed company called Cobalt 27, which built up the largest private stockpile of the metal and saw its value soar as prices took off before crashing as new supplies from Congo flooded the market. We shall see what we shall saw in that regard. The goddess has her doubts. But, that's just the way it is. And let's see what else we have in the news. Oh, sometimes this thing takes so long to load. Good night, Ricky. Bitcoin. Geez. I don't think you can buy cobalt to stack. You can buy silver and gold to stack. You can buy copper to stack, but I strongly advise you, if you decide to stack copper, stack it in a form like copper pipes and copper fittings. Much better value that way. Just saying. So let's see what we have here. Price inflation isn't as bad as you think. It's worse. Well, gee, no surprise there. The political class keeps gaslighting us and trying to convince us price inflation isn't as bad as we think. The fact is, it's probably worse than we think. Well, no shit, Sherlock. People like Paul Krugman keep saying Americans don't realize how good they have it. Well, you heard it there first. Americans don't realize how good they have it. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, the felon, recently said she doesn't experience sticker shock when she goes to the grocery. The goddess sincerely doubts that Janet Yellen has bought her own groceries for at least a decade. The White House spokesperson gets on the podium day after day telling us how great the economy is. Inflation's coming down, don't you know? Meanwhile, the rest of us are struggling to pay bills. How bad is it out there for the average person? Well, a TikToker who goes by Sewerlid, discovered an option to reorder a 2022 grocery list from Walmart. The 45 essential items cost $127 when he ordered them 2 years ago. And what did the same basket of items cost today? $414. You read that right. It cost a basket of identical goods nearly quadrupled in just 2 years. That is a 226% increase, making the annual food price inflation rate 113% on those items. The goddess will put some caveats in after this. I feel like I'm going to be sick, Sewerlid said. We all feel that, Sewerlid. We all feel it. Why is there such a discrepancy between government data and real life? Spoiler alert, the government lies through their teeth. How in the world did prices go up that much when the official CPI is only running 3.3%? Spoiler alert, repeat, government lies through their teeth. Heck, even at its peak in June 2022, CPI was a little over 9.1%. Bullshit, the goddess's CPI was running 17.8% year over year when that came out. If you think government numbers might be underestimating the problem, you're right. The government CPI formula was sketchy to begin with. And then the government revised the formula in the 90s, so it understates the actual rises in prices even more than it used to. The BLS calculates CPI by analyzing the total price of a basket of goods. Obviously, the things the government chooses to put in that basket and the weight it assigns to each category have a big impact on the final CPI number. Under the current formula, 10.9% of the CPI is based on durable goods, computers, automobiles, appliances, etc. Non-durable goods, primarily energy and food costs, make up 26.6% of CPI. Services, including healthcare, rent, internet, cell phone, etc., account for the remaining 62.5% of the basket. So why these particular divisions and percentages? Because the government number crunchers decided it should be that way. It's arbitrary. Well, actually, it isn't. They very carefully looked at this. And they look for the things to put in those baskets that go up the slowest, amongst other little tricks here. The people who created the formula would almost certainly claim they based it on some kind of objective methodology. They would make it sound sciencey. But when you boil it all down, the things in the formula are in the formula because a relatively small group of government people decided that's the way it should be. You don't have to be a total cynic to recognize there's a lot of room for bias in creating or changing this formula, which, by the way, it got changed again a couple of years ago, very quietly at the end of the year, so that it became calculated sort of biennially every 2 years instead of every year, which kind of effectively, if you believe the government, that kind of cut the number in half just by default. Just saying. In 1998, it made wholesale changes to the CPI calculation because the powers that be decided the data was overstating inflation. If you run today's data through the 1970s formula, CPI would be about double what the government reports today. In other words, that 9.1% CPI reported in June 2022 would have been over 18% in the 1970s. And bear in mind, our dollar was worth more in the 1970s. That needs to be taken into account here too. The bottom line is never trust the government's bottom line. The inflation problem makes more sense if you understand inflation. During her recent interview, Yellen, the felon, blamed cost increases, including labor cost increases, that grocery firms have experienced for rising food prices. She also said there might be some increase in margins. She missed the real cause of price inflation, her and her friends in government and at the Federal Reserve. Inflation isn't just rising prices. Price inflation is a symptom of a more fundamental type of inflation, monetary inflation. An economist, Milton Friedman, once quipped, inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. It is always and everywhere a result of too much money. The goddess would quibble with Milton there. The word in this case is not money. The word in this case is currency. Okay? We have not had money since 1964. And even then, we only had fractional money. Just remember that. Simply put, central bank money creation is inflation. And it's not money, it's currency. One of the symptoms of this monetary inflation is rising consumer prices. Economist Henry Hazlitt explained it this way in Inflation in One Page. And if you have not read Henry Hazlitt, read Henry Hazlitt, people. Inflation is an increase in the quantity of money and credit. Its chief consequence is soaring prices. Therefore, inflation, if we misuse the term to mean rising prices themselves, is caused solely by printing more money. For this, the government's monetary policies are entirely responsible. When you understand the real cause of price inflation, everything else makes sense. During the pandemic, the Fed pumped nearly $5 trillion in new money into the economy through quantitative easing alone. That doesn't even factor in the amount of new money created because of bank lending spurred by artificially low interest rates. That on top of the nearly $4 trillion with a T created in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. With all that new money sloshing around chasing the same amounts of goods and services, prices were bound to rise. Of course, government people never want to look in the mirror. They want you to think they're saving you, not making your life crap. Something to keep in mind the next time some pundit or politician tells you your economic troubles are all in your head. You might want to think about preserving your wealth with an inflation hedge. Gold and silver are ideal in that capacity. So, a few things here. First of all, once again, all money is currency. Not all currency is money. Okay? What we have right now says right on it, it is a Federal Reserve note. The word note denotes what it is. It is a debt instrument. Okay? It is not money. It is a debt instrument. It represents debt. You see that number back there? That number back there, the one on top, was last week's number at the start of this podcast, at the start of this live stream. The number right below that was this week's number, right after the start of the live stream. That little number down there, the 489 million, that was the number just before I sat down in this chair. Okay? Just so you know where we are in this little problem. And it is indeed a problem. We no longer have money. We have not had money since the gold standard went bye-bye. In fact, we haven't had sound money since 1913 when our government totally and completely screwed us over. That's point number one. Point number two, inflation is not a bug. As far as your federal government is concerned, whether you're American, Canadian, French, whoever, wherever you live in the world that has a fiat currency system, especially a debt-based one like ours. As far as your government is concerned, inflation is a feature. Inflation is not a bug. Inflation is supposed to be there. Inflation is the number one universal tax on all people. And inflation is theft. Okay? Every day, every hour, your money is losing its bargaining power. It's losing its purchasing power. It's losing anything that symbolizes any type of wealth. Which leads us to that hedge against inflation. You may have noticed that here recently the mainstream media is actually beginning to notice once again that silver and gold, other than being shiny rocks, are still out there. You may also notice a whole lot of pundits are saying, well, you should invest in paper gold and paper silver. You know, get those nice futures, those nice commodities, those nice ETFs, those nice whatever the hell you want to call them. Get the paper. No, don't ever get the paper, okay? You want physical gold and silver. Now, the goddess has said this many, many times. It does not matter how much you buy every paycheck. You buy the damn shit every paycheck. Every paycheck, you take your nice, pretty-looking little fiat debt instruments, the fancy toilet paper, and you wander on down to the local coin shop, and you trade that debt instrument for actual physical silver and gold in your hand. Because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That's number one here, okay? And consistency is what builds great stacks. Even if you only buy 2 quarters a week, okay? After a year, you've got 100 freaking quarters. Even if you only buy 1 Morgan silver dollar a week, a cold Morgan silver dollar, after a year, you got 52 Morgan silver dollars. Use a set amount of money every week, buy silver or gold. Don't pay any attention to the spot price. Pay attention to the premium. Ask around. If you got 2 or 3 coin shops, find out who's going to give you the best premium deal. Buy silver and gold, silver or gold, whatever, every week. You get a little windfall money. You trade in a whole bunch of steel or a whole bunch of aluminum cans, or you win a scratcher ticket and you get an extra $200. Take part of that and buy an ounce of silver. Take the whole thing and buy a tenth of an ounce of gold, whatever. Consistency is what builds stacks. And it is also what builds wealth. Because guess what? Let's take a look at the current price at this moment here, at this moment in time. And you are supposed to be watching the comments because you know I can't.
I have been doing some.
Chain trustworthy online purchase sites. While the goddess does understand people like to buy things online with credit cards, the goddess does not like a paper trail. I use fiat debt instruments. I buy in person because I like my privacy. There's very little privacy left in the world. But for online sites, they're reputable. Walmart.com, believe it or not, is still one of the best places to get yourself 5 ounces of buffaloes or 5 1-ounce bars or whatever. You want to look for silver bullion. They even sell gold now. You want to make sure it is being directly delivered by AppMex. The price you get on Walmart is going to be lower than the price on the AppMex website. The price you get on Walmart is not going to include a 3% markup for using a credit card. In fact, if you happen to belong to Walmart Plus and you have a Walmart credit card, you're going to get points back for using your Walmart credit card. And Walmart.com AppMex deliveries come faster than AppMex from the website. Go figure. But you're looking at things like SD Bullion, Costco. Yes, when Costco has it in stock, you want to sit there and refresh the screen, and because it sells out fast on Costco. Walmart.com. If you go to eBay, make sure you get there from the bullion company's direct website link. Most of these companies, like if you go to moneymetals.com, for instance, where I read my news, most of them will have their other sites up above. If they have an eBay page, it will say, this is the link to our eBay. You want to go to their eBay from their website, okay? Because there's all kinds of scammers on eBay. There's 10 zillion scammers on Amazon. So if you want to use anything other than a bullion site, if you want to use eBay, you want to use Amazon, make sure that you are getting it from the actual dealer. If there's a link that says this is their website link, double check it. Go back and forth. Make sure that you get there from a reputable place. Okay? SD Bullion, S is in Sam, D is in David. AppMex, usually the most expensive prices, but every once in a while they'll send an amazing push notification to your cell phone. These things sell out really quick, but what I saw the other day was silver buffalo rounds, no minimum, no maximum, and they were 89 cents over spot. It was a flash sale. Okay. JM Bullion is another one. Moneymetals.com usually has pretty good deals. I will say that. Money Metals will have pretty good deals. They also do vaulting services and things of that nature. Hi, James. Really, more and more fast food places are talking about not taking cash. As a matter of fact, a lot of businesses in big cities are beginning to cut back on taking cash. Part of it is due to rising crime. Part of it is due to rising employee theft. Go figure. Just a couple of things to show up. But wherever you go online, you want to make sure that you sign up for their email offers because most of them will have a monthly contest of some sort. You never know, you might win something. You also want to make sure that you sign up for their push notifications on your cell phone because inevitably most of these sites will run flash sales. When they're not seeing the sales volume they want, they will push out a flash sale. And if they see in your purchasing patterns that you are one of the people who takes advantage of flash sales, then you'll see more of them because they want your money. I still find it absolutely hilarious that Walmart consistently has the best prices, okay? And absolutely, honey bunny, a lot of it is that globalist agenda. That's why the goddess does not have credit cards and doesn't buy shit online. you know. And yes, hello, James. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. Just saying. Here's an interesting little news point here. Even Nigeria plans to bring home the gold reserves to minimize risk. Really now, let's see here. Even Nigeria is now bringing gold reserves home to keep it safe from the West. Gee, like they don't trust us.
I'm shocked.
I'm
Shocked.
hurt. According to a report by the Star, Nigerian officials decided to repatriate the country's gold in April to mitigate risks associated with the weakening U.S. economy. Oh, no. Perish the thought. Quote, economic indicators such as rising inflation, escalating debt levels, and geopolitical tensions have raised apprehensions among Nigerian policymakers about the stability of the U.S. financial system. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Nigeria holds about 21 tons of gold in its reserves. Economist Fatima Abubakar called the gold repatriation a strategic decision and said the country was taking proactive measures to safeguard its wealth and strengthen its financial resilience. Nigerian officials also said bringing gold home would reflect the country's self-reliance. By bringing its gold reserves back within its borders, Nigeria not only asserts greater control over its financial assets, but also demonstrates prudence in managing economic risks amid global uncertainties. Well, yeah. Nigeria isn't alone in wanting to control its gold reserves and bring them home. India recently repatriated 100 tons of gold from vaults in the UK. Many countries have expressed concern about the U.S. and Western powers using gold and dollar reserves as a weapon of foreign policy. Well, yeah, they have every reason to be concerned. According to a World Gold Council survey in 2023, a substantial share of central banks expressed concern about potential sanctions after the U.S. and other Western countries froze almost half of Russia's $650 billion with a B gold and forex reserves in the wake of its invasion of Ukraine. According to the WCGC, 68% of the banks surveyed said they plan to keep their gold reserves within their country's borders. That was up from 50% in 2020.
If you don't hold it, you don't own it.
If you don't hold it, you don't own it. One anonymously quoted central bank told Reuters, "We did it. We have gold held in London, but now we've transferred it back to our country to hold as a safe haven asset, to keep it safe." Invesco, head of official institutions Rod Ringrow, told Reuters, "This reflects a widely held view. If it's my gold, then I want it in my country," has been a mantra we have seen in the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
There has been speculation that countries have been moving gold and other assets out of the U.S. in the wake of economic sanctions on Russia, but it's been difficult to confirm because the Federal Reserve refuses to release information about the amount of gold in its vaults.
No.
Make of that what you will. In March, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell dodged Representative Alex Mooney's, Republican West Virginia's, questions about the central bank's foreign gold holdings. Well, gee, I wonder why. Federal officials also refused to comply with a Freedom of Information Act request for records about such things. As investigative reporter Ken Silver wrote, Headline USA filed a FOIA request with the Fed for records reflecting how much gold the Federal Reserve Bank of New York currently holds in its vault, as well as records reflecting the ownership stake that each of the FRBNY's central bank government clients have in that gold following Powell's evasive response. The FOIA request also sought records about the Fed's gold holdings prior to Russia's February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The Fed denied the request. The gold repatriation trend started long before the West slapped sanctions on Russia. In 2019, Poland brought home 100 tons of gold. Hungary and Romania also repatriated some of their gold reserves around the same time. In the summer of 2017, Germany completed a project returning roughly half of the gold reserves back inside its borders. In 2015, Australia launched efforts to bring half its reserves home. The Netherlands and Belgium have also initiated repatriation programs. This gold repatriation trend underscores the importance of holding physical gold free from counterparty risk. If you store your gold and silver with a third party, you could lose your metal through theft, fraud, or an act of God.
No.
Of course, you could lose silver and gold stored in your home the same way, except for fraud. So you have to weigh the risk of using third-party storage and keeping large amounts of silver and gold at home. There are vaulting companies. Money Metals is one. I believe Outnext has vaults. There are 4 or 5 good vaulting companies where you can store your gold and silver. The goddess strongly recommends against this. That said, it also depends on how much you have hanging around, Exactly. We need a FOIA on a whole heck of a lot of stuff,
Hey, James, nothing to see here.
Mm-hmm. Well, Shane, let me put it this way. The goddess does not believe in crypto. I'm not saying don't hold it. Absolutely. I mean, if you like to play with crypto, if you can get it for free, which seems better. I have a whole bunch of altcoins and things that are stored over on Coinbase. And I have some Bitcoin and some Litecoin and some Ethereum that I earned watching ads and reading emails and things way back when the stuff wasn't worth crap. Okay? We're talking back when Bitcoin was worth like less than $100 for a whole one. That's how old this stuff is. It's not money. I don't care how much you say about it. It's currency, and there are people who might even consider it a reasonable currency, but it ain't money. Okay, first off. Second of all, we're in a place where I can't spend shit. Okay? If I had it in a cold wallet, which I don't because Coinbase actually wanted more identification and more paperwork to give me my altcoins and cryptos to put in my bank account, then my bank wanted to open a bank account. So it's sitting there and I'm probably going to lose it, but I don't really care. The thing is, I can't spend it anywhere here. And I can't spend it if the grid is down. We actually have had fairly extended power outages before in which electronic cash registers did not work. We saw in Canada last year, I think it was, there was some sort of a hacking thing, a system crash, whatever, an update went very badly. And 3/4 of Canada lost the ability to take electronic payments.
Now, that's a good question, Shiny. It depends on the type of claim. A patented mining claim is private property. You actually have a title or a deed to that. So the answer to that would be yes. In terms of the other claims, theoretically, yes.
Theoretically. In practice, maybe not, which is another reason for getting together, forming a mining district, and forcing them to patent claims again. By law, they have to. And yes, if you can turn crypto into metals, by all means, turn crypto into metals. Lots of crypto into metals. Because it's there, I mean, it's a great way to use cryptocurrency because a lot of businesses don't take it. A lot of people don't have a cold wallet. If you can't get to a network, if you can't get to the blockchain, you're kind of screwed. And if you lose your private key, you're really screwed. I know somebody that happened. Okay. I mean, that's just the way that is. So I am always going to be somebody that says you want to hold your shit because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And expand your definition of reasonable commodities. Like, yes, if you got the room, stack copper fittings, stack copper pipe, stack brass fittings, stack brass things, because they will come in handy under a whole lot of circumstances, especially if you know how to distill things. I mean, everybody needs distilled water. Just saying. I mean, perfectly reasonable, logical use for certain types of tubing. Keep your silver and your gold at home. But don't overlook your pantry as having an excellent return on investment. The goddess has calculated the annual CPI in this household is running about 14-15%. It's still running hot right now. It peaked at just under 20% year over year, which meant that when I traded our fiat debt instruments 2 years ago for extra groceries in the pantry, I got a damn good return on my investment, people. Okay. I am still working on last year's toilet paper. I am getting an excellent return on my commodities. That's kind of what you have to do. And it's a good idea to collect all kinds of things. Like, for instance, we replaced the defrost switch in the refrigerator. So he took it apart so I could see what the inside looked like, and I kept the parts that will be useful, that I can trade in and I can recycle, or I can turn into something else. You know, that's the thing, is we're coming into some economically ridiculous times. So it's a good idea to, first of all, get your debt down, consolidate yourself, make long-term repairs. If you've got, if you come into a nice windfall, this is probably a good time to put a new roof on the house if you can afford it.
Nice pun,
Don't
Shiny.
go into debt to do it. But if you come up with a big chunk of cash, if you get a gigantic bonus and your roof is a little bit on the older side, fix the roof, If your car engine is rolling over 250,000 miles and getting a little bit oil burny, replace the car engine. Things of that nature. Remember, all commodities have a purpose. Because, yeah, we may end up in Mad Max at some point. But what's more likely right now is a series of Tuesdays, a slow decline in the way things work until the morning we wake up, and it's probably going to be a Monday, actually, and the government is saying, introducing the United States Fedcoin new dollar. You've got 30 days to trade in your old dollars at the bank at the rate of 100 to 1 to get nice new ones. High culture of currency. And if anybody is interested in seeing some beautiful numismatic coins and learning about fancy stuff for your silver stack, Culture of Currency has a kick-ass site, a nice little YouTube channel. He does beautiful work showing off some gorgeous coins, and he does regular giveaways for his members. So you might want to head over there and become a member.
Another thing you should not put off is health care, because in a collapse scenario, you have no idea what kind of health care will be available or not. So if you have maintenance operations that are going to need to be done, it'd be a good idea to get them done as soon as practical, because you don't know if they're going to be done 2 years from now. So just bringing that up. Everybody's situation is different, but I mean, I've gone through a lot of testing in the last 6 months because I wasn't quite feeling up to snuff, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something unfortunate and going to wind up in a bad situation without repair available.
Yeah, now is the time to get your little ducks in a row. Now is the time to get your debt paid down, to get your pantry filled up, to replace older tools that are falling apart or repair them, to get a few spares of things that you use on a regular basis, because the prices are not going any lower. And as you can see by those numbers back there, the upward curve is accelerating, people, okay? The upward curve is accelerating, and it's going to get worse. Absolutely, culture. And I'll tell you, you don't even have to pay $80 for an entry-level water distiller, okay? You can use, basically, if you get one of those big stock pots and the lid has the little hole in it to let steam out, you fill the big stock pot with water. They cost about $23 at Walmart. You fill the big stock pot, you find the right size tubing that fits in that little hole. And if you want to make it permanent, I wouldn't. I would find a very tiny cork with a slightly smaller tube and fit it in that hole so I can pull it out and use the stock pot. But you can do that, and you can just run that tube down into a gallon jug next to your stove. Okay? A cooking pot. That's basically what you're good for. I mean,
a pressure cooker.
Yeah. We have 2 pressure canners around here because we home can a lot of food. Both of them can distill water very well, as a matter of fact. That's the kind of thing that you want to look at. Don't always go for the big new fancy gadget. You don't always need the big new fancy gadget. And if you spend $20 on something that you can use for many, many other things that also happens to distill water, then that gives you $60 left over that you can use to buy more silver. Just saying. I mean, really. And we've got pressure canners, honey bunny. We do have an Instant Pot because several years ago I had racked up enough reward points at Walmart that I got the Instant Pot for free, and it was great. But I have 2 pressure canners, so if I really wanted to, if we had a second burner outside, I could can 14 quarts at a time. As it is, we do 7 quarts at a time. Oh, yeah. They're great for distilling all kinds of liquids. Just saying. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, culture. A purpose-built thing can be absolutely great, okay? But if you don't have a purpose-built thing, or you don't have the money to get a purpose-built thing, or you don't have the space to keep a purpose-built thing, getting a $20 stock pot or a $15 stock pot on sale at Walmart and a piece of hose, you're looking at under $20. You don't have to babysit it. If you put a 5-gallon jug next to it, you don't have to babysit it. And you're getting your distilled water. It pays for itself, because right now where we are, distilled water is ridiculously expensive. It's $2.82 a gallon in the stores, $2.75, right around there. So if we looked at the sale price, $2.50, I could get the equipment. That basic setup would give me another stock pot for making soup and for a water bath, canning jams and pickles and things, and giant pots of chili, etc. And also, after 12 gallons of water, it's paid for itself. I mean, that's basically, there's times and places for both things. If you've got the room, if you have a large kitchen, which we don't, so you have room for new gadgets. If you have the money for gadgets for single-use, purpose-built items, then yeah, by all means, get a high-quality, single-use, purpose-built item, if it fits. I mean, we spent almost $400 on a second All-American 921 pressure canner because they last 50 years. And all those boxes back there are home canned food. So while everybody else is eating Hormel chili and saying, man, this shit sucks rocks, we're eating real food, okay? Roof cisterns are amazing, okay? They are really, really, really nice. I would love to have one, but I don't have a roof, so, at least not a roof I own. Honey bunny, fixed low-income old people. We spend our money on silver and gold, so yeah, I cut corners and use a cheapo depot distillery system because I don't need a high-tech distillery system. And the money I save buying used things, not buying things at all if I don't need them, repairing things instead of getting new things, goes to silver and gold. So yeah, I will say this: my thrift shops here, I never see pressure canners or pressure cookers.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one either.
I have seen exactly one old school small Presto. I mean, we're talking a Presto that they wouldn't even hold like a 5 pound roast, the smallest one they make. I saw exactly one at a thrift shop in town in 4 years. We don't see them used here at all. Everybody here keeps their pressure cookers or pressure canners. Haven't seen them at yard sales used, haven't seen them on Craigslist used, haven't seen them on Facebook used, and have not seen them in the thrift shops. And of course, you never see an All American used around here. That would be I would be convinced that we had died and gone to heaven or something if that had happened. But anyway, as it stands right now, gold is $2,331.40. Silver is $29.38. So that is great. We are still holding in a very nice range. And I think we're going to be at this range for a while until the next change in public perception causes things to ramp up a little more. It may well be where you are, because down in Tucson, I used to see ordinary pressure cookers, like the Prestos for big roasts or even for small turkeys. I used to see the large Presto pressure cookers at the thrift shops fairly often. The only thing missing would usually be the jiggler, okay? But I never saw a pressure canner at a thrift shop. 10 zillion jars, no canners. Go figure. Dude,
Mhm.
you need to update that million number back there, the million with an M number. 604. But yeah, I think what we're going to see here in silver and gold is the silver and gold are going to continue to consolidate the position where they are right now. I believe the realistic floor for silver is actually around $30. They are working very hard to hold it below 30 right now for various reasons. Okay. And the realistic floor for gold is around 2350 to 2375 right now. I think we're going to see more shifts in public perception as the summer deepens and people see, Lord Malarkey looking more and more like the dementia patient that he is, and people see more unrest going on societally because people are getting sick of the crime. People are getting sick of the degrading of quality of life and the climbing bills. People are already looking at facing a punishing summer heat in a lot of places with electric bills that are going sky high. So we're going to continue to see a shift in public perception that is going to push toward getting those prices up over the realistic floor. I think probably around the end of summer and sometime before the so-called election. I have my doubts about that one. We're going to be looking at silver staying routinely above 30 and up. We're going to look at gold staying routinely above 23.75, maybe even 24 and up. A few other things, if a few other little things happen, like war situations heat up, etc., yeah, we're gonna see some new highs for gold, and silver may well follow this time. We may get lucky. And Shane, we actually live in Helena, Montana, in the city, but we spend half of the week out mining. So there is that.
Well, one thing too, culture of currency brought up is hunting and fishing.
Oh,
In
yeah.
some areas that makes good sense, but I don't know how many people I talked to in Tucson that said, well, if things go to hell, I'll just go out and shoot me a deer. And it's like, okay, so you got 1 million people and a couple thousand deer. How long is that going to last? So,
well, Shane, anytime you land in Helena, Montana, look us up, dude. We have met up with a lot of the people on our channel.
Yep.
And like, if you ever hang out on Reddit, I hang out on Reddit all the time.
We'll chat for food.
Oh, yeah. But that's the thing is, as Bear was pointing out there, Arizona is a state that currently has a population that is probably 10 times its natural carrying capacity.
At least.
At least, okay? Arizona freaking sucks rocks. Don't live there. We live in a state where we have not even come close to our state's natural carrying capacity for human beings, which is a good thing. If you live in a place that has far exceeded the natural carrying capacity, you're going to have a problem, especially if you want to hunt. Doesn't work that way. And yeah, you're in Phoenix. Have fun with that. I mean, really.
6 million people completely dependent on outside resources and a supply chain.
And you do realize, James, I hope you realize that this coming summer, when California is once again paying all the market will bear to steal your power so that y'all are living with the rolling brownouts, life could get a whole lot worse really fast in the Phoenix metro area. Not a good place to be stuck if things really get bad. Yeah. Well, culture, I think one of the reasons you don't see the markets trend toward what you could call more ancestral meats is because a lot of people simply aren't familiar with them. I mean, like, I know we drive right by a massive herd of buffalo. They're domestic buffalo, bison, on the way to where we're mining at the moment. Drive by every single dang week. They're beautiful animals. A lot of people don't associate ancestral meats with a value product, in part because those niche markets mean far higher prices. And right now, I mean, people are going through the line multiple times at my local Winco right now because we got 73.27 hamburger on sale. $1.98 for the 1 pound chubs. Limit 4 per purchase, not per day, per purchase. So he purchased 4, I purchased 4. We did that yesterday too. And we're not the only people doing that. If I could get bison for $1.98 a pound, oh hell yeah. If I could get lamb for a reasonable price. But we're talking in my Winco, right down the road here, $9 a pound for a rabbit. Rabbit used to be poor people food. Okay? Rabbit used to be poor people food. It's $9 a pound on sale. Oxtails used to be $1 a pound. They're now 11, 12, 14 a pound.
Yeah.
Tongue used to be less than $1 a pound. It's 14 a pound now.
Yep.
Beef heart used to be 25 cents a pound. It's like $3 a pound, $4 a pound when you can find it. The foods that used to be poor people food are no longer poor people food. Can't afford them anymore. I love lamb. I would eat lamb all day, every day. I can't afford it.
True, Shaggy.
Yeah. Right time of the year culture. If you're in the right part of the country and you're doing it in months with an R in it, you can get rabbits with a 22. Absolutely.
Don't have
But
too
down
many
in
rabbits
Arizona,
around here.
it never gets cool enough for rabbits to truly be safe. So you got tularemia to think about there, I love fish. I love duck. I love buffalo when I can get it for a reasonable price, which is not very often, unfortunately. I love deer. I love elk. I love moose. Haven't tried bear. Want to try bear. Have had rattlesnake. Not a fan. It does not taste like chicken. Okay? Just saying.
Yeah, culture.
Yeah, northern Arizona's forest, James. The question is, how good are the rabbits up there? Because to kill the kind of parasites you get in rabbits, you need a hard winter.
Seems unlikely, Lars.
No, Lars, I don't think you can raise calamari up there. Well, I don't know. That big tank we have might hold a lot of calamari. What do you think? We fill it with salt water?
So
Do they need agitation?
Yeah, you got to feed them something. It's easier to do pigs.
Yeah, that's true. It's easier
Pigs
to
and
do
chickens
pigs.
are easier to feed.
I have had squirrel. I have not had beaver. I love goose. We're up to our eyeballs in Canada goose around here, by the way. It's beautiful. Well, Shaggy, you may be wrong there. Because while it's something a whole lot of people have forgotten, there have been dozens of bank bail-ins, bank bailouts, and major defaults over the last decade and a half. I mean, things like Turkey and Greece and Crete, etc. And all of them happened essentially the same way, in the sense that people went to bed on Friday night thinking everything was normal. People woke up Monday morning with their government telling them, by the way, we've banks are on a bank holiday and we're in the business of revaluing the currency right now. And, you got to bring your currency down to the bank and we'll trade it in for this new shit. This is the way it happened in Mexico, too. It's happened in, Mexico, Venezuela, Zimbabwe multiple times, Crete, Greece, Turkey, a whole bunch of them. And yeah, striper bass are amazing. I personally am not as much of a fan of freshwater fish as I am of saltwater. Unfortunately, Montana lacks an ocean. That's the only thing we're missing here. But Montana lacks an ocean. So there is that. But at any rate, it may shape up to be a very interesting summer. Meanwhile, fill up the pantry, keep the gas tanks half full on the cars, be sure to fix the things around your house that need fixing, and remember, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Okay. That number is crazy today.
Okay. So anyway.
The millions and millions and millions are going up.
So Shaggy says, have a good one.
You too, Shaggy.
Let's turn that down a little bit. So, say this weekend we're back out in the field again, setting claim stakes, hiking some damn steep hills, clearing roads, exploring new areas, and getting some samples.
I'm going to have fun.
The little sample that Eva took from M2 and put in her pockets did pan reasonable gold. So that's a good sign. The little bit of blurb records we could find was also encouraging. So we got to do there. We're continuing to mill when we're in town, and I see us working long hours for the near future. So we are going to be very, very busy doing stuff. Hopefully, looking over our shoulder, we'll be able to, help other people out. With respect to Chris asked about when we're going to have a mining meeting, we got to find out if there's any groups or whatever here to even start miners meetings and stuff. If not, we might have to do that. I don't know. I think we're going to have a very interesting 5 to 6 months ahead of us here. I was surprised when I called my daughter today to just tell her that, all the tests had come back good. The GPAA is something, but we're talking about meetings where you actually set up mining districts. Now, a mining district is like an incorporated town in some ways. it has its own government. And agreed, Shaggy, if we have one. But because of old laws that gave power to mining districts similar to municipalities, it's not like a club. It's more like a town. And you have a certain amount of autonomy and authority within the mining district to kind of make your own rules. And not if they're owned by the employees, James. That's what I'm saying. A mining district is basically run by the miners or the mine owners.
And it gives you more power in dealing with the government.
But it gives you rights and authorities that individuals do not have. So that's the difference between a district and a company town. You are correct in that company towns can be an issue, but let's say it's like more like a regular town. Okay. And so that's it. Yes, we have mining districts all over this place too, but they're inactive. And I don't know exactly in what manner they're inactive and what it would take to reconstitute them. I am not sure on that stuff, but it should probably be researched.
It may not be as hard as it would seem. I'm going to be doing some research on that.
True, Shiny, but miners tend to be more common-minded than a lot of other people. And that may be what we need to do, Honey Bunny. We do have some contacts and stuff that we might be able to do something in the general top of the hill area that might be doable. Do not know. But there's not a whole lot of different people who own the patent and mining claims and stuff around there. So we may be talking something as little as 12 individuals and organizations. I agree, Honey Bunny, but that's where the Chevron decision may come in handy too. The new lawmakers or regulators more have had a lot of their authorities circumscribed. So we'll have to see how that works, but it's not going to happen by itself. So, as I say, I know there are people that have been working the problem for years now. And so I'm sure we can do some research and get there. I would imagine Chris knows some people that have been active in that sort of thing. In general, it's very frustrating to have a situation where the Chevron decision. Okay, Honey Bunny, you might want to keep track of what happened in the Supreme Court in the last 7 calendar days. Years ago, the 1980s, I believe, the Supreme Court basically said, well, if somebody sues a government agency and says, we don't think you're interpreting the law right, the Supreme Court said, you got to kind of defer to the regulatory authority as they're the expert. The decision that came down on Friday was basically, no, the regulatory agency can't make up new law. They have a narrow authority to interpret existing law, but it's narrow. Oh yeah, this is shiny new. Absolutely. It just changed the whole regulatory landscape to a significant extent. This was Friday. Okay. The Chevron decision was in 1984. This basically severely circumscribed the Chevron decision. Basically said, nah, they were wrong. Kind of like what happened to Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade ain't there anymore. The Chevron decision ain't there anymore. Okay. So the way that the government's been operating for the last 40 years has now been changed.
Which is why we need
Not sure exactly how this is going to shake out, but when a government agency takes a term like significant disturbance that's written in a law or regulation, you're not allowed to make a significant disturbance. Well, what the hell does that mean? You know? And I know it used to be in Arizona, significant disturbance was like no more than 2 acres, you know? Then it changed to if you're metal detecting, you got to fill in the holes when you're done with them. Okay? Huge difference. So this is the sort of thing where the Supreme Court has said, no, you got limited ability to interpret these things, but if it's nebulous, you can't just write the regulations any way you want. Okay. So how this is going to shake out in detail, I don't know, but it's significant. It's kind of like today, the Supreme Court said that presidents have basically unlimited immunity for official acts, presumed immunity for possibly official acts, and no presidential immunity for purely personal acts. Okay. Now, what the heck does that mean? Okay. For example, something we have being adjudicated, right now is when the then President Trump says, I don't think the election was done correctly, and I think it needs to be reviewed. Is that an official act? It sounds pretty official to me. He's the President of the United States talking about elections, and specifically the presidential election. Sounds to me like this is an official thing. Okay. He's discussing it with the vice president, with the Congress. Sounds kind of official. Right now, they're trying to throw him in jail for that. Okay. So that's exactly, honey bunny. So say it's hard to tell, for example, the Supreme Court didn't specifically say that what was or wasn't an official act. So they just said the trial court has to review it based on that. Okay. So I say these are the sort of things where we'll see how it shakes out. Surely the Biden administration is going to do everything they can to ignore these things or circumvent them. But it's substantial, that's for sure. We'll see how it all shakes out and what the consequences are. When it comes to mining, there's a move afoot. Probably won't go anywhere under Trump administration, but under a Biden administration, it'll go as far as they can push it to basically rewrite the 1872 mining law. Okay, I agree, Shane. And we need to resist that at all levels. Okay, but we shall see what we shall see. Keep an eye on what's going on in your area. Make sure you write letters, communicate with your legislators and your representatives, and see what you can do. Okay, to shape the conditions, the situation, whatever. Yeah, I agree, honey bunny. Shiny rocks, yeah, kind of, sort of, exactly. Yep, Alex, it could be some pretty big stuff. We shall see what happens here. Any other subjects? I'm starting to get a little bit tired here, so let's see if there's any other subjects out there. Any questions or anything like that before we continue? Oh yeah, it's according to this 66 degrees and windy. So I say we shall see what we shall see. I say I know that things are interesting when my daughter is asking me about the situation and saying this is scary with respect to a certain subject. Okay. I'm usually the the Chicken Little or whatever
You're usually the person who hyperfixates on world events.
Cassandra.
Yeah.
That was Cassandra,
Well,
right?
except you're not, because Cassandra was the one who always knew what was going to happen, was always right, and nobody wanted to listen to her. That's me.
Yep.
The thing is, you're the one that likes to hyperfixate on crap going on halfway across the world that is not going to affect Helena, Montana.
Well, I
We
don't
need to
think.
worry about our banks here.
Yeah, and I think that, for example, Russian foreign policy and economic pressures might have a significant effect on our banks over here. Yeah, sounds about right, Jeff. And so she's got, I think her oldest child is 25. Honey bunny, my daughter. Yeah, I think Monique is 25. Heather mentioned today. Anyone else live in Oregon? I don't know. I don't. Good night, Blindsight. So again, any questions or comments or anything like that? We're just doing so many things, and we'll try and give you all updates on what we find out about this, that, and the other. But man, it is so much. It's hard to remember it all. So we shall see what we shall see. Hey, why change a good thing, honey bunny? So anyhow, that's basically our plan here. Tomorrow we got to put another 600 pounds in the tank, and that'll give us a full load there. We got to do our best to finish stripping that resin and digest some stuff. Are there places there to go panning that are public access? Absolutely, Chain Monska. They also.
Not only that, you can also go sapphire mining. You can go crystal hunting.
Yeah, there's crystal.
Montana rocks.
There's got crystal places. They've got, you got private sapphire mines where you can go out there and basically pan your own sapphires, and all kinds of things. You just have to be
good fishing.
You just have to be careful that you're not on somebody else's claim.
And good fishing.
And good fishing, absolutely.
Lots of great hiking.
Thoughts on the debate? I won't say too much about the debate per se because it's, pretty self-explanatory. However, I think it's interesting that the media jumped so quickly and so thoroughly on the Biden's got to go thing. Somebody I pay attention to said years ago, he says, Biden's here for one term. They're going to have him do all the dirty work and then throw him away when he's no longer useful. This looks very much like a throw him away, especially when have you ever seen a debate in June? They're always like in September or October.
Yeah, they're never in June. And Dr.
Never in
Jill
June.
Wants to be president.
And also, when have you ever seen two governors debate? You had DeSantis and what's his name in California? Newsom in California had their own little private debate. For what purpose? Okay. That's the, there's a lot of stuff it looks like is going on beneath the surface here. I find it interesting to watch the turmoil in the Democratic Party between the, call it Biden loyalists, and now it's the anyone but Biden people. Although I was watching Robert Barnes last night, he brought up a couple interesting things. First of all, it may be very difficult to get Biden's name off of the ballot in many states unless he voluntarily retires, basically, or is incapacitated. Okay. The issue of the money that he's raised cannot be transferred to anyone else's campaign. If, let's say, Newsom gets nominated by the Democratic National Committee, okay, a legit nomination, okay, it's still impossible legally to take the money that was donated to the Biden for President campaign and move it over to the Newsom for President campaign. It would have to be refunded to the donors, and they would have to then redonate. Even if Kamala Harris, who is raising money for the Kamala for Vice President campaign, now becomes the presidential nominee, it's not legally possible for her to take the money from the Kamala for Vice President and move it over to Kamala for President. There's a lot of complications here that I wasn't aware of. Okay. So it's a very interesting situation, and it has a lot of complexity and nuance that's not apparent on the surface. Blindside, there's a possibility there, especially if they create so much chaos or difficulty for him that he can't do his job. Allow Trump to win and then screw things up. That's a possibility. I don't know. We're in literally unprecedented times, especially in a time where the rules as we've had them are just being ignored right and left. Like, for example, the Supreme Court said that Joe Biden didn't have the authority to cancel these student loans. So then he says, okay, and then cancels them using another legal theory. And say, so the rules, the laws, the norms, we don't have the normal guardrails to guide our estimations now. That makes it complicated. Plus, you have an economic situation where we have this enormous debt overhanging the United States, and the rest of the world organizing to become free of the economic domination of the United States. These are the sort of things that, good Lord. And that doesn't even get into things like the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, and things like that. So it really becomes pretty unpredictable. But I do believe that there are people who think they can predict and control it, and they're working to create an outcome they want. I don't know, Blindside. They've spent a lot of time trying to take him down for someone who's not a threat. Now, would I prefer someone better? You bet. But they seem to work awfully hard to get rid of this guy. If he was a plant, I don't think they would put forth that kind of effort. How effective he's going to be, that's another question entirely. I have no clue. What happens if the election is just so screwed up that nobody can even tell for sure who won, where both sides can make a semi-plausible case that, oh, we won. No, we won. Where does that lead us? Especially when the Supreme Court says, well, we don't want to get involved, like they did last time. I don't know. I think it's a little late for you, Alex, because you can't get on the ballot in all the states now. You take care, Chain Monska. It's a real chaotic but important situation. This is the frustrating thing too. Yeah, pretty much, Honey Bunny. But these are, depending on how things go, there's important consequences to it, and that's it's going to be difficult to predict what's going to happen. But I think that everyone should be as prepared as they can be for difficult and challenging times. Okay. I think we're going to be heading into that. And work on your adaptability, your capabilities, your knowledge, how to do things. And say, make yourself the best you can be, the most adaptable you can be, the toughest you can be, the most skilled in as many things as you can be. Exactly, Honey Bunny. The next thing is likely to be a little more kinetic, You're looking at France right now, and I think you have a very good example of what happens when the left loses an election. Then they go to burn it down. The British election, the opinion polls are moving so rapidly. It's, again, unprecedented. But then we don't know. I think a lot of people in Europe are kind of concerned about the way their governments are behaving, in terms of there's this major threat to the East. And I think a lot of people in Europe are going like, do we really want to expand this war? What are the consequences? I don't know. I don't know how they think. And it's probably different country by country, So, boy, you tell me, are we going to have situations like Tiananmen Square, or is it going to be more like the Battle of Athens, Tennessee? Who knows? What are all these 10 million illegals doing in the United States, and why is the Biden administration so interested in keeping them coming? What is the purpose there? It certainly isn't doing them good with the voter base. They're losing black votes, Hispanic votes, stuff like this. Do they think they're going to cheat enough with these people, or is it, to, fill up an army with people that you get citizenship if you join the army? I don't know. I really can't tell, but there's a lot of things that don't make sense. I say that the Democrats have been very good in the past at reading the room, so to speak. What a comedian will tell you, reading the room, telling how, and they would adjust their behavior and rhetoric to do it. They're adjusting rhetoric a bit, but not behavior. When it's clear that what is it, 80% of the people don't like this immigration thing, all they can do is say, what immigration thing? Well, does that get them votes? How many people will go, yeah, I don't think there's any immigration thing, when you can just look at the videos? That's the part that's unusual to me, that they seem so insensitive to their voter base's emotions. This is unusual for Democrats. Lying is not unusual for the Democrats. Lying is not unusual for rhinos. Lying is not unusual for politicians in general. But ignoring the obvious opinion of the voter base, that is unusual. Okay? I don't know what that means, but to me it means they're planning on doing something that doesn't depend on their voter base. That makes me kind of nervous. Don't know. Okay? Really don't know. And then you get the complications of Mod Vlad, Xi the Emperor, the Iranians, the whole BRICS. What are they going to do about what and why? And what are
it will be interesting to see what happens in England's election on the 4th.
Yeah, England's election on the 4th of July. That's 3 days now. Be interesting to see what happens if the Reform Party wins. Holy crap. Le Pen, her party won. Paris is burning. Again, how does this affect things? Entirely possible, James. Now, the question is, if Antifa riots, in how many cities do the police stand down, and in how many cities do the police not stand down? And what are the consequences of that? I have heard 2 cities, Chicago, New York. The poor people in those cities are so fed up with the immigration situation, where immigrants are getting housing and food and this and that and the other, while veterans and poor people are on the streets, that they're getting ready to go to war. Okay. I don't know if this is true, but fairly reputable sort of source said, I know exactly where the Civil War is going to start, at Chicago, because the black underclass in Chicago is arming for war against the immigrants. And they didn't say gang violence, war. So I don't know. Let's say, so is that a reasonably accurate interpretation of the truth? Is that some kind of extravagant belief that has nothing to do with reality? I have no ability to discern. Ooh, that's a good question, Honey Bunny. Depends on whether or not CNN reports it. Well, no, they did that too. Yeah, a mostly peaceful protest. Yep. USSR style breakup? Possibly. James? Sorry to sound so matter of fact. No, I don't see any problem with that at all. It's just a very bizarre situation where I think reasonable people can arrive at radically different conclusions without being unreasonable at all. And none of them, in my opinion, are very certain, because it's, wow, that looks pretty weird. It's just so, which one is it right here? Good Lord. Because there's so many things. Did you hear that the price of gold in other places is way higher than here?
Yes, it is.
Now, is that in, say, constant dollars or what? I mean, if you exchange dollars for, say, yen.
Well, the gold futures in Shanghai have been running about 10 to 15% higher than they are here in the U.S., and there is an arbitrage opportunity. However, playing in paper is a difficult sport.
Yeah. Well, Rebel Capitalist had a thing today. He said this morning he noticed that the U.S.
The treasuries.
treasuries had made a substantial move today, and the Japanese yen to dollar had made an almost identical move. Okay. Could be. I doubt that it's that many, honey bunny, but in a free society, it doesn't take too many people to cause an awful lot of ruckus. Okay. And so again, what's China's plan? You know, how many of these people that have been let into the country are terrorists, foreign agents, Russian agents, Chinese agents, Iranian agents? Who knows? We have a fairly soft society, easily disrupted, you know? So I don't know. It's an extraordinarily unpredictable situation. And these things can turn suddenly on seemingly small things. So we shall have to see as it goes. This is why I say I want everyone to be as personally and their family as personally prepared as possible, to be as adaptable as possible, and then stay aware of what's going on. Okay. I was quite surprised that my daughter was nearly as knowledgeable as she was about certain things, because I said, "Did you hear?" And she goes, "Yep." "Did you hear about?" "Yep." That's unusual. She's usually not the type to focus a lot on current events. And I'm very happy that she is. So to me, that's what everyone should be. Eyes open. I tried to point out some things like economic issues as opposed to international uh, geopolitical issues. Those things are, yeah, those are important. But the one that's going to hurt you is probably either economic or the people around you, the illegals, the various classes, things like Antifa, whatever. Those are the people that are most likely to have a direct impact on your life. So be aware of these potential threats and disruptions. Think of it more as disruption as opposed to a direction. Everyone wants to go for the dramatic. Not that this isn't dramatic. And but you're a lot more likely to go hungry than to be in a firefight, you know? And or let's at least hope so. Okay. So those sort of things.
You may have a problem.
I was talking to someone the other day who was saying, you know, I was getting kind of nervous. Maybe I need to buy more ammunition. You know, it's like, how much ammunition do you have? Oh, a couple thousand rounds. Do you really think you're going to burn those up before you're dead? You know, you think you can sling a couple thousand rounds of lead at somebody else before somebody hits you? Do you have a, body armor? Do you have a trauma first aid kit? So if you get hit in an arm and a leg, do you have a tourniquet? You know, things like that. And that's what you have to look at. Look at the broad spectrum, not just the things that people like to focus on. You know, the real dramatic. Because, for example, a trauma first aid kit, I have one in both cars. Under normal circumstances, I might be at a traffic accident rendering aid, and these things are really important, you know, and that sort of thing. I've been to 2 situations where people died. And, here's another thing you can do. I personally have had EMT training. Long time ago, it was for a mining job and stuff. How many have you had? Or advanced first aid or something, so that whether you're out at a mine and somebody gets hurt, you're in a traffic accident, or you're in a firefight, how knowledgeable are you in terms of treating injuries and such? If you're not confident that you can read the situation and apply the appropriate uh, initial aid, maybe you need to focus more on training, knowledge. If you are not very skilled with a weapon, maybe you want to do that. You know, do you want to basically study more outdoor survival skills? I don't know. Exactly, honey bunny. You're highly trained. I'm less highly trained, but again, if there's a traffic accident and people are hurt, I'll be able to triage and do the preliminary stuff. You know? Yeah, I saw that one too, Blindside. But that's the sort of thing. They had the tourniquet, they knew how to use it. Okay. So they were able to, well, rescue with a bit of covering fire stuff, but they were able to run away and I think they were released from the hospital that day, which is wonderful. It also kind of lets me to believe that guy was shooting a pistol, not an assault rifle. I say, but these are the sort of things you need to look at. How can you be more resilient? If you have a spouse or children, what can you teach them to do that makes them more able to take care of themselves and other people? Knowledge is pretty cheap in the days of the internet. It also, if you know what to do about a situation, you're not nearly as likely to panic in a situation. That sort of thing. Honey bunny, I believe in the most appropriate weapon for the task. Sometimes that's one just big enough to do it well. Other times it's the biggest one you can handle well. It depends. When it comes to grizzly bears, one thing. Exactly, Blind Sight. Do you have your, what's the name of that? The wellness company? The 10 medicines you need in emergency that you may not be able to get. Do you have those?
Yeah,
Antibiotics?
There's a company called Jace.
Uh-huh.
Jase. S as in Sam, E, that sells medications of various types online. They have
JASE?
Yes.
Okay.
J as in James, A as in Adam, S as in Sam, E as in Edward.
Yeah.
They sell various put together
kits
of actual medicines.
Medicines, okay.
Or stuff.
Well, you're right, honey bunny. I think a lot of that has less to do with the knowledge and more about the overconfidence part. Humility is a good thing. Remember, no matter how good you are, there's somebody else that's just as good. Unless you're really good on reading the situation, assume that it's worse than you think it is. But yeah, don't look to engage in trouble. Look to observe the trouble before it manifests. But don't look to engage if you can avoid it. I know there was one situation where I was outnumbered 50-1. And it wasn't a really hostile crowd, but it wasn't really a friendly crowd. And I was in a tough situation. But I was able to essentially talk my way out of it. Nobody got hurt. Nothing like that. I knew if it got to the point of physical conflict, I was going to lose. I might be able to take 6 of them with me, but I was going to lose. So avoid the conflict. So But I mean, that's another thing where you need to educate yourself. How do you read hostility? How do you read crazy people? When somebody's behaving in a particular way, what are they likely to do? And what kind of behaviors should you engage in to minimize the chances of a bad outcome? Probably, James. I agree. Instead of buying more ammo, in many cases, people would be better paying for some classes and taking some good training. I say, I agree with all of those, honey bunny. But part of the skill is learning what kind of situation you're in and which one do you need to do. Do you need to just go all out, or is it better to sneak away? Don't know. It's all in situation dependent. And that's where knowledge and practice. Another thing one can do is like paintball. If the idea of playing paintball sounds good, you might want to try it. It hurts enough when you get hit that you don't want to get hit. It also will tend to reinforce the idea that no, you're not invulnerable, and create the proper reflexes. Yep, blind sight, it happens. Yeah, we're 3.5 hours into it.
I'm going to open the window.
If you need to go, please do. But yeah, I say these are the sort of things that evaluate. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you improve your situation and your family, your friends, your network, whatever? I remember one time when I was a security guard, we were training on clearing a house. It quickly became apparent that even in daylight, the bad guy usually gets off the first shot because he's not moving ahead looking for the other person. He's lying in wait, waiting for the other person to appear. And that gives him a natural advantage. It became very, very obvious very, very quickly. The best thing you could possibly do in a situation like that is send in the dog. Because even if the dog gets shot or killed, at least now you know where the bad guy is, without doubt. But yeah, it was almost impossible to get in there and see the bad guy before they got at least one shot off at you. And often undercover concealment, honey bunny, all he's pointing out is maybe half his head and the gun hand. So, he also has a pretty good idea where you have to come from. Flashbangs, nice. Don't have any. Exactly. Well, and I heard a funny one, honey bunny. You'll probably like this. This was in the Falklands War, and the British had pretty well stretched their supply lines and everything. And so, standard way to clear a house or a room in a war situation is just chuck in a frag, Then what goes bag, then you come in shooting. And what they did was they found out if they yelled grenade and threw in a grenade with the pins still in it, the bad guys would clear the room, and then they could go and pick up their precious grenade and move to the next house. Yeah, whenever possible, honey bunny. But they had stretched their supply lines. They were really undersupplied at that point, and so it worked pretty good because people do not wait to see whether that pin is still in the frag before they run. They just collect them as they came out. Oh, but yeah, it's a very dynamic
Got away
environment
from my name.
because we just wandered away. I've still got 11 people. Anyhow, so it is getting late. Some people have to go. Anyone got any more questions, comments, or whatever? You bet. Untrained, honey bunny. Exactly. Conscripts, poorly trained. The Argentinians were not crack troops that the Brits were up against, which probably would save the Brits. Yeah, understood, honey bunny. So anyhow, anything else? And we should be posting some stuff. I have to work a little extra hard to get out a video from the weekend on Sunday nights, but I think it's helpful to everybody to kind of see stuff before the Monday live stream. And so I say I try and do that. I put forth a little extra effort for that so that we got something to talk about and something you can see. Yes, James, absolutely. A well-trained dog. Okay, that's a good thing. Take the time to train it properly. Just a second, honey bunny. Let's see if anyone else pops anything else. But yeah, that's a good thing, James. But make sure your dog is properly trained. Having a poorly trained dog can be worse than no dog. I've seen some funny cop videos on that too. No, stop biting the other officer and bite the bad guy. Or let go of the bad guy. Let go of the bad guy. Oh, it can be hilarious. You too, Lars. Okay, you take care. And we're going to have a real interesting weekend this weekend. I hope you enjoy too. So go ahead and post her, honey bunny. And thanks for everyone coming. And we'll try and have more useful information next Monday. We should have a lot of interesting stuff. Thank you, Blindside. You take care. Oh, it's interesting to see the lag time between Honey Bunny. There we go. Yep, honey, it sure can. That's not their natural instinct. You have to train them well on that one. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Thanks for coming, everybody. Okay, now end the stream.